Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving Fireball Hot Take Friday, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Caroline Fenton, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. Ian, hello.
Hello.
So Ian was doing Darren, Donick, and Chase today, and they were like, I think they were talking on Darren, Donick, and Chase. They were like, this is the first time Ian has ever done our show, and I'm like, Ian's been working here for 6 years. Like maybe even longer than that. I think Ian has worked here in some capacity longer than I have. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So if Ian's too drained before this holiday weekend, just know that apparently he's taking Monday off. So
He earns it.
So there you go. I want to start on this today. Last night's Vol football game. What did we all think? Let's kick it around the room. I want to go last. Can I go last?
Sure.
Lead it off.
What did you think?
What did you think of last night's thumping of Bowling Green?
So first quarter, I thought, okay, Tennessee. Okay, you promised this up-tempo, this quick offense, this fast strike offense, and you're delivering on it. And I thought, okay, good for you, Joe Milton. And then the second quarter came along, and the defense could not stop Bowling Green's, might I say, below-average offense. And Joe Milton started to do too much, tried to be too slick with it, tried to point to the wide receiver, tell him to go deep, and then completely overthrow it. So overall takeaways, I saw some things that were good, but I saw some things that really made me worry about whenever the Vols have a legitimate opponent. I don't think they're going to be able to hold their own.
Okay. Ian, what did you think of the game last night?
I thought that was a pretty good synopsis right there. I mean, at times early on, it almost looked like they were like, okay, we're going to, script a couple of these first two drives. We're going to, get out to a good lead, get out start. And then I wonder if they just went vanilla on purpose. And they were just like, okay, this is Bowling Green. We're not going to show our whole deck of cards here. It's game one. Let's just see if we put them out there, if they can just go through maybe like some of the fundamentals of the offense. And it definitely looked like coming out of the second half, they were like, all right, we tried to do all this. We're just going to run it. And so it looked like the first half looked all right. First quarter looked great. Second quarter, foot off the gas. Maybe just kind of running through the motions a little bit. And then the second half, they were just like, okay. So they definitely started to run the ball right at that first drive in the second half. And I think they just were like, we're way better than these guys. Let's just keep it simple, run the ball, win, and worry about next week.
So I will agree with you about the second half. I think the second half was whatever we're doing here, we're not going to lose. Whatever happens here, we know we can run it on every play, and if we run it on every play, we're not going to lose. So we're just going to run it on every play because we're not going to lose. I think they suck. I think the Vols suck. And I'm with you guys. I watched that first quarter and thought, okay. And we knew that they were playing the Sisters of the Poor last night. We knew that team was abysmal, right? I think Braden Gall tweeted out that out of the 130 teams that Athlon ranks, Bowling Green was 128. And they looked the part last night. They stunk. And so I'm watching the Vols play, and I'm like, okay, touchdown, 3 and out, touchdown, okay. Now the Vols get a 3 and out. That's fine. See, the punter can, he need a punt once or twice today anyways. And then it was 3 and out. Now here's first down Bowling Green. Okay, see down there around midfield. I'll be darned. Up first down Bowling Green. They're in the red zone. Field goal Bowling Green. Okay, and then they kicked that field goal before the half, and it's 14-6 going to halftime. I'm like, oh my God, it's halftime. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think Robbie Stanley said this morning, if you would have told me the day before that the score going into half was 14-6, I would have had a heart attack.
Oh man, and it was closer than that. And so then, I got to be honest with you guys. I flipped Ohio State.
That was a great back and forth a lot to that.
I had here's the thing about the Vols that killed me about last night's game. Anybody who tells you anything different other than the fact that team stinks and that quarterback stinks. No offense to Milton, but now that the players can get paid, I feel more comfortable in saying that players stink. So the guy's already graduated from college and he's getting paid. So I can say he stinks. He stinks. I mean, I saw that, and I was like, Joe Rexrode, what kind of pot were you smoking when you wrote that article about Tennessee's biggest gain and Michigan's biggest loss? Question mark. because I'm
I
watching
think
this.
emphasis on the question mark.
I'm going to say Tom Brady is Michigan's biggest loss, but I could be wrong about that. Anywho, I'm sitting here watching this game, and I'm like, I am freaking bored. Like everybody, I saw, these reporters in Knoxville, and the Bobo media in Knoxville is just, Tennessee gets a new football coach, and it is pants off until the coach starts losing, and then, it is, they run the guy out of town. And so, the Knoxville media is like, hey, Coach Heupel promised offense, and we got offense. And I'm like, that was the most boring offense I've ever seen in my life.
It was exciting in the first quarter, though. It was quick.
When they could complete a pass.
Yes.
Because then they stopped doing that. Like the exciting, when you think of exciting offense, you think of Russell Wilson, or you think of Patrick Mahomes running around outside the pocket. DB's trying to chase him. He throws the ball from the side like a third baseman in baseball. It goes 65 yards into Tyreek Hill's arms for a touchdown. That's exciting. We're going to turn around and hand it to the JUCO guy I've never heard of 15 times in a row and score a touchdown. That's not really all that exciting. It's exciting when it's the Titans doing it with Derrick Henry against the Patriots in the playoffs. It's not exciting when it's the quarterback stinks. Game was boring. It was boring. And I honestly was sitting there watching it, and I'm like, do I go upstairs and take all the radio stuff down and put on the multi-screens, or do I just flip it to Ohio State? Click. And I watched a lot of Ohio State, and I was going back and forth. I don't know what this means for the season, because I don't know how good Pittsburgh is, and I don't know how good Missouri is, although I don't think they're going to be very good, and I don't know how good Kentucky's going to be this year, and I don't know. So I know this. They're not going to beat Florida or Georgia or Alabama, but we kind of already knew that going into the season. And I know they're not going to lose to Vanderbilt, and we already knew that going into the season. But, like, the idea that, hey, you know what? This team could, this quarterback, he broke his finger last year. I didn't know if you read that in the Joe Rexrode article, but he broke his finger last year, and so maybe it was all Michigan's fault, and Harbaugh's a bad coach, and it certainly couldn't be his fault because Joe's writing about him. And I'm like, man, this guy, he can't throw the deep ball. He can't throw the short ball. He struggles on the intermediate passes.
So and that's just about all of them.
And then when he does just put it right on the guy, Jalen Hyatt drops the ball, and I got Jordan Rodgers calling the game, and he goes, he'll catch that next time. Says who? Like, who's allowed to make that assumption?
And based off of what I saw from Joe Milton last night, I don't know how many opportunities I'm going to give him to pass the ball.
But you don't have anybody else.
What do you mean? Like at the quarterback position?
Yeah, you don't have anybody else.
I know that. But run the ball, because almost every single opportunity he got, he overthrew it.
I think that's a great idea. When they play Alabama, let's just dial it up and say, run the ball every play.
Defense isn't going to figure that out, are they?
Here's my thing. Like, does this mean Heupel's a bad coach? No. Does it mean that his tenure at Tennessee is going to fail?
No.
Does it mean they can't get better and maybe win a game this year that they shouldn't, that would get us thinking that maybe they can turn things around? No. But if you're asking me for a full recap of last night's game, I think the team stinks, I think the quarterback stinks, and I thought the game was incredibly boring, and I think that most of their games this year are going to be really boring. So, like, when they play South Carolina, they'll do the same thing they did last night. They'll try to run the ball on every play, and they'll run this hurry-up offense, and it'll take 5 hours. And I don't know why in college football, maybe because the clock stops on incompletions, but when you run this hurry-up offense, I feel like the games take longer. Like, the more of the, everybody runs the line of scrimmage. Okay, we look at the line of scrimmage. Okay, let's look over at coach. Okay, let's see. Sonic the Hedgehog, Barbara Bush, cheeseburger, and a NASCAR. Hold up. Look back. New cards up there. Let's see. Bill Gates. And seriously, that's what college. And so it takes I know the play clock's 40 seconds. It might as well be 80 seconds in games like this. And so this is how every game's going to be. Like, they're going to do that against everybody. And it's going to be, what was the final last night? 38-6?
Yes, I think that is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
It's going to be 30. Every game they play is going to be 38-6. Georgia, 38-6 Georgia. Florida, 38-6 Florida. Vanderbilt, 38-6 Tennessee. I think every game is going to be that way. And I'm not saying they can't get better, so it could be. But if you're asking for a synopsis off of that one game, I find Titan preseason games more interesting than I did last night. And I know, I can already tell you this, The text line, the callers today, it's going to be flooded with Jarrett hates the Vols. Like, that's what people are going to say. And that's not true. I want interesting football on the TV. When Butch Jones was the coach, at least the games were interesting. I mean, Hail Marys at the end against Georgia, and you got these unbelievable comebacks or these unbelievable choke jobs against Florida and Oklahoma. Like, that's fun. That's interesting. This last night, and again, I know, it's Bowling Green.
That's what I was going to ask.
Austin P or whatever, but my goodness, woof. That game was awful last night. That was awful. That was terrible. You know, we talked, what did I tell Chad Withrow last night on the show? I said, I just want it to be fun. Mm-hmm. I want the players to have fun. I want the stands to be energized. I want it to be fun. And I think the fans brought their energy last night, on the fun front, but I did not feel like that game was fun. And that's kind of my that's my big takeaway. You know, for a game that I spent way too much watching, because I watched the whole thing, minus when I flipped over to Ohio State. But for what I watched, I thought quarterback, bad, team, bad, game, boring. But they beat Bowling Green, so there's that.
I see, and that's what, to Ian's point, I don't necessarily know. Was it just, okay, let's go ahead, get up early, and then just not lose the game? Not necessarily make it flashy, but just consistently not lose because we're playing Bowling Green? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that what the team is? Or is that what they did last night, just to get in, get a win, and then get out?
I don't think that's it. I do not think I do not think that, like, it was like, the Vols put their foot on the gas in the first quarter, and then they eased it off in the second quarter. And, should we be mad at the Vols for not being able to show up in the – I don't think it's that. I think it's the quarterback can't throw. I think that it's the quarterback, he can't throw. Like, and when I say can't throw, I think I need to
he's not accurate.
Explain. Yeah. Like,
he can throw.
He's like,
there's just not necessarily receiver where he's throwing.
At the college level, he's like what Jamarcus Russell was in the NFL. Jamarcus Russell had the strongest arm in the league. But the guy just never could throw the ball in the right place. And he was lazy. And I don't think Milton's lazy. But, the quarterback, this is this high-powered run to the line of scrimmage, throw the ball all around the yard offense, and the quarterback can't throw. Like, he can't throw short. There would be somebody who's the distance of me to you, and he's throwing a 99-mile-an-hour rocket at the guy. Like, dude, no touch on his passes. He overshoots his receivers on the deep ball by like 13 yards.
And then overshoots them.
Easy
there, Joe.
I am not trying to be all Debbie Downer here. I'm just saying last night's game was team, not good. Quarterback, not good. What was it, like 0 of 9 at one point in the second half?
Oh, it was like 8 plays, 7 yards, something like that.
He didn't complete like his first, I think he completed like one of his first 10 passes in the second half. That team stinks. That Bowling Green team's awful. Even Bowling Green knows they're awful. And, just wow. All right, your reaction to the game last night. 615-737-1025. We're not doing 4 hours on that Bowling Green game. So 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on that. And we'll get into Joe Milton. Because I do think that there's a reason they chose Joe Milton. Did he prove that last night? Plus, Joe Rexrode has already texted me. Did you read his column today?
I have not. No.
Oh, it's the flippiest of the flops of all time. We'll get to that next.
Pancake.
Stillman and Company, we are live from our studio on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app.
Going deep. Taking a couple of shots to the end zone, and this one's hauled in. Tennessee touchdown, Cedric Tillman. That was a rope, a 40-yard strike from Milton to Tillman.
Tell you what, Tennessee fans, get used to that. This connection, Joe Milton and Cedric Tillman.
Hey, Josh, Joe was 9 for 11 at the end of the first quarter, finishes the game 11 for 23. What did you kind of see after that second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, where you guys just started to run the ball?
Some of it's what they were doing and where you felt like you had an opportunity, some drop 8 coverages. There were a couple times that I didn't like his decision making. There's some things that were open. A couple guys running open down the middle of the football field that he doesn't recognize and see. There's some things that he's got to clean up. Offensively, we're going to have to clean up a bunch of things too. At the same time, there were some positives coming out of it as well.
That was Josh Heupel last night after the game. I just texted Jordan Rogers, and I said, quote, we just played a play-by-play clip where you said, get used to it, Tennessee fans, after a touchdown pass. And I said, I don't think they can get used to it. Milton, woof.
I don't think they should get used to it.
No, because, again, that team number 128. Team number 128. That's how bad that team was last night. So Joe Rexrode has texted me and said, quote, your inability to read is glorious. So I'm guessing that's in reference to his column from Tuesday in which he highlighted the fact that Joe Milton might be the next Peyton Manning. And this, today, his new column was basically comparing, and I'll just sum it up for you, comparing Joe Milton to a baseball pitcher who's got 95 with a wicked slider, but then he can't get anybody out and he can't throw strikes. And that, hey, you know, that guy, he can pitch, but you got to teach him how to get people out. I mean, the guy's graduated from college. Now, I know he's got something remarkable like 3 years of eligibility remaining, which makes me wonder how hard it is to get a degree from Michigan.
Okay, we're not slamming Michigan as an institution here.
How do you get 3 years of eligibility after you graduate from college?
Did he redshirt?
You get a 5-year clock
yes.
the day you step on a campus. Now, kids today get a 6-year clock because of COVID. So my guess is that he kept one COVID year and he spent 2 years at Michigan or 3 years at Michigan, and that's how he has 3 years.
That's
I guess you could do it in 3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll leave the Michigan hate out of this. I am not sold this guy can play meaningful quarterback in the SEC. I think this guy would be a perfect quarterback at Kentucky, a school that has somehow, some way found a way to win games in the SEC for the last 5 years without being able to throw a forward pass. But I don't think you can win at Tennessee with the talent around you, unless you just want to beat Vanderbilt and South Carolina, then I think you could do it. But I don't think this guy can beat anybody any good because he just cannot. There is no consistency with him.
Accuracy is an issue.
But it's not even accuracy. I mean, that's a problem. But he's putting heat on 4-yard passes. He's got no touch on the ball. He doesn't throw into the middle of the field well in the intermediate passing game. I mean, he throws the long ball. He is a one-trick pony. I mean, this is a guy who is what I call a getting off the bus All-American. That when you play high school basketball and you see the team you're about to play and they get off the bus and they got a bunch of 6'8" dudes, you're like, oh, I bet they're good. But we've all played with the guy who's 6'8" and so uncoordinated he can't do anything. You look at Joe Milton take a snap at quarterback, and he looks like Cam Newton. I mean, he's got the biceps that are just bulging out of his.
He's huge.
He's about to pop.
He's shaped like a tight end.
He gets the football and he throws it, and it's a laser beam. And you're like, oh my God, this guy could go into Lambeau Field in a blizzard and throw it 99 yards. That's why Michigan probably wanted him so bad, because when it's November and you're going on the road at Ohio State and the wind is 18, 23 miles an hour and it's cold as hell, this guy can throw through it. But then you realize he literally can't connect with anybody. And so, I mean, Milton's going to be the quarterback. This reminds me of when I was in college and I went to Louisville and Steve Cragthorpe got fired and it was a disaster. And Charlie Strong took over, and Charlie had to get everything going, and Charlie had no quarterback at the time when he first took over either. we all remember that he had Teddy Bridgewater, but he had a year where we were 6-6. We were in the Big East, and Tennessee does not play in the Big East. We were in the Big East, went like 6-6, got to a bowl game, and it was great. But the quarterbacks were a guy named Justin Burke and a guy named Adam Froman, and they were both terrible. But it was like, hey, they're awful, but this is all we got, so this is what we're rolling with, which is what a lot of coaches do their first year, and then they have to go get somebody good for year 2. That's what this is with Milton. It's nothing more. I think what Milton is it's a sign that all the other guys are awful. That Hooker's not any good, Bailey's not any good, which disappointing on Bailey because he was a high recruit. But that they're not any good because this is the guy they're putting in there. I told you, did last night's game make me think that Tennessee can improve? No, I think they can improve, but I don't think Milton's going to be improving. I think that is Milton. I think that you're going to see a game where it's close against like the middle part of their SEC, Missouri, Kentucky, whatever. And it's going to be a semi-close game, and he's going to overshoot a receiver by about 9 yards, and it's going to go right into the breadbasket of the safety, and it's going the other way for a touchdown. And I think that's going to happen a couple of times because I just think that's who this guy is.
And I think that could have happened a couple of times yesterday if they had not played Bowling Green. Because there was one, I think it was Joe Milton, Jalen Hyatt in the end zone, and it was... I had got to him, but it wasn't necessarily a good pass. He was covered up with Bowling Green defenders. If that was any formidable opponent in the SEC, not necessarily in Alabama, but if it was like a Missouri or a Kentucky, like you mentioned, it very well could have been picked off. And that's what concerns me.
All of those passes could have been picked off last night. Milton, this guy's not very good. And he doesn't have players to make up for it, like around him. Like when Heupel played in college, Heupel was good, but he wasn't better than the quarterbacks that he played. He wasn't better than Chris Weinke. He wasn't better than, but he
was a Heisman finalist.
But he had a great team at Oklahoma.
Yeah,
he had a great
won a national
team.
championship.
And when you've got an okay quarterback, but a great team around that okay quarterback in the SEC, you can make up for it. You can win games for it. You may not be able to win the national championship for it unless you've got the Alabama line and the Alabama running backs. But this guy, it reminds me of when Jacob Coker tried to get the starting job at Alabama, and he lost to Blake Sims, a converted running back. And then the next year, Coker was the starter, and it was like, okay, here's the game plan. We're going to give the ball to Derrick Henry 53 times a day because we don't want Jacob Coker throwing the football. And when we want Jacob Coker throwing the football, we want Lane Kiffin to design a play where somebody is wide open, can catch it short, and then go run in the end zone with it. With Milton, it's like, okay, here's what's going. 4 verticals every play, just throw the ball as far as you can. That is, I don't see a lot of upside for this guy. I see that he is got a great arm. The end. Let's go to your phones. 615-737-1025, Fireball Hot Take Friday. We'll go to the text line, which is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What do we have?
Mark from Paris texts in and says, what a surprise, Jared hating on the Vols.
Dude, that was coming.
Yep. Milton was okay. I like the fact they tried going deep. I think they didn't do that many times at all last year. That might have been for a reason. Milton has got to stop overthrowing fastballs stop throwing fastballs on intermediate stuff.
So I'm going to say this. First of all, throwing the deep ball, anybody can throw the deep ball. Like anybody can dial it up and say, hey, we're going to throw the deep ball on this play. The Minnesota Vikings could do that with Kirk Cousins every play. They choose not to, and it's the right decision because Adam Thielen's not a speed burner and Kirk Cousins is not a get the ball down the field like that kind of guy. Now, Milton, that's the best thing you can hope for Milton is that you throw it deep and he doesn't overthrow the receiver, which I think if you give him 10 deep balls, he'll probably hit 2, 3. Mm-hmm. And so just keep throwing it deep. That being said, to say, well, last year they didn't throw the deep ball. And last year they had Brian Maurer. Last year they had Jarrett Garantano. And Garantano could have thrown it deep, but he was just so shell-shocked that there was nothing good he could have done.
Could have thrown it deep, but same thing with Joe Milton. You can throw it, but there just might not be anyone there to catch it.
I think Garantano's a better quarterback than Milton.
Really?
Yeah. I do.
Why?
Because Milton has no touch. You can't win in football throwing the ball 100 miles an hour to a guy who's 4 yards away from you.
Yeah. He has a stronger arm than Jarrett Garantano.
Right, but see,
that doesn't necessarily equate good quarterback.
Right, but you're taking the worst of Garantano against good teams. We've seen Milton play one game against Bowling Green.
So I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that yet.
But I'm just saying, I just don't. I don't think you can win with a guy who literally has no touch on the football. The guy has no control of it. Think of it like a basketball player that shoots the ball, and he has no touch on his shot. Now, he can shoot it from anywhere, but he has no idea where it's going as soon as he shoots it. That's what Joe Milton is. You ain't going to win basketball games like that. You're not going to win football games like that. You're not going to win baseball games like that. Name a quarterback in the NFL who just chucks the ball and has no accuracy and has no touch on the football.
Jameis Winston.
And I'd argue that Jameis has actually a little touch. He can throw the ball short. Now, I think Arians got there and they were like, hey, no risk it, no biscuit. Let's chuck it.
Yeah, let's just throw it.
But you can't win with that. Like, so I'm Milton. You can beat Vanderbilt with Milton, and he'll be fine. I think the running the ball stuff
could beat Vanderbilt with less than Milton.
I think they need to, focus on running the ball, but it's not going to be the kind of style that they want to play with. What else we got?
One texter texts in and says, overall, I give them a C-. Geez, Jared, did they lose? You cannot compare him to Jamarcus Russell yet. It's one game.
Dude, C- is bad.
And that's what I say is, okay, winning and losing, I get it. That was a W on the schedule. They're starting the season 1-0. But if you give them a C- against Bowling Green, I don't think last night was about getting a win. I think it was about, okay, let's see how good we can be to see how good we can be this season if we can beat other teams out there. But if you're giving your team a C- against Bowling Green, then yeah, I think you have every right to be a little bit pessimistic about it.
Well, I just think the tone of the start of the show is indicative of that of a C-. I mean, I'm not sitting here dogging the coach saying, this is unbelievable, unforgivable, I can't believe, like when Jeremy Pruitt lost to Georgia State or whatever it was a couple of years ago. It's not that, but it is, they're not very good, and he's not very good, and we'll see where they, maybe they can get a little bit better. That's a C-, right?
And I think there were good things to take away from
unless
it, too.
people's families viewed C- differently than my family viewed C- growing up.
No, C- is bad.
Right.
C- is bad. And there are good things to take away from it. To a texter's point, Theo Jackson had a great game. I agree. I think Theo Jackson had a great game. I think they had a great first quarter. I think you can take away good things from that. But overall, it wasn't good.
Am I the only person that felt like they were watching an NCAA football video game where they simmed up 15 years and all the players are those computer generated players? And it's like, pass complete, Josh Thompson for a first down. And you're like, who? What? I can't tell you how many times I'm watching the game last night. And I watched every Vols game last year. I cannot tell you how many times I'm watching the game last night. Who's that? Seriously. Who's that? There'd be a tackle. I'm like, oh, who's that?
Well,
so many. They hit off that running back.
I don't think there's any sort of takeaway from that.
That JUCO running back. Who's that?
Well, I don't think that just because you don't know who they are, I don't think that's
Do you know who they are?
No.
Oh,
but that doesn't mean that they're good or bad.
Ian, how many times watching the game last night did you go, who is that?
Pretty much the entire game except Milton.
I mean, come on. We're a sports talk show in Tennessee. And we're like, who's that? Every play.
But that's not necessarily indicative of how good they are.
Who's that?
You could say, who's that? And he goes off for 350 yards.
No. We watch an NFL game, right?
Yes.
Okay. We know who's going off. It's Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans. Very rarely does a guy go off in an NFL game that you've never heard of. I think the last time a guy I have never heard of that went off in an NFL game, Jonas Gray, was a backup running back for the Patriots. He had 4 touchdowns in a game on Sunday Night Football.
Well,
Nobody
there you
has
go.
ever heard of him.
There you go.
Nobody has ever heard from him since. And I think Floyd was still there when that happened. That's the... I'm watching these guys on UT. I'm like, who are these guys? What else we got?
Matt texts in and says, well, C- is passing.
Well, so
yes, Matt,
you're
right.
A C is average, right?
Yes.
Okay. C- then
is just a wee bit below average.
Minus, which means it's below average. And that's what we're saying. We're not sitting here saying that last night's game was an abomination.
No.
But we're
C's get degrees, baby.
Last night's game was just and gosh, it was so boring. Last night's game was so boring. 615-737-1025. I don't know about you guys. I flipped over to Ohio State last night. So I do want to share a thought on Ohio State's game last night because I got to be honest. I found myself incredibly compelled to watch the Ohio State game. And kind of looking at myself like, I don't know about that take, Jared. We'll get to that coming up next on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Hey, a reminder, we'll be working on Monday. That's right. Don't miss the 2021 Middle Tennessee Highland Games and Celtic Festival on Saturday, September 11th at Percy Warner Park. A fun-filled day full of Celtic games, children's activities, Celtic music, food, Scottish and Irish dancers, local and regional vendors, and much more. Tickets are on sale now. Visit Mid-10 Games, Mid-10. Mid-10, Tenn, mid10games.com for more details.
We'll see Penn State on Saturday.
But for Minnesota, they'll lose the game, but a great effort at home. 45-31, the final.
There you go. Ohio State survives Minnesota last night. I did not think that was something I was going to say. I thought that Ohio State was going to row the boat out of Michigan last night. And I got to tell you this. If Michigan's defense had a pulse, Minnesota. If Minnesota's defense had a pulse, or the running back, who I thought was a bad boy.
Yeah.
If he doesn't tear his Achilles last night? It looked like an Achilles.
It was a knee thing.
I
don't know if it was Achilles
or
yeah.
But I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, he'd have run for 300 yards last night.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching last night's game.
That was a tough loss for them.
And I knew Ohio State was going to win the whole time. And I tweeted it out at one point. I said, "Gosh, I hope Ohio State loses. I wanted Ohio State to lose. I was rooting so hard for Ohio State to lose. And I don't know if it's because I don't like Ohio State, which I don't think I do, or if it was because I just don't want the college football playoff to be the same teams every year. But I was cheering for Minnesota last night. I mean, even though I can't stand that Minnesota coach because I think he's kind of a toon. But I was rooting so hard. Do we think that Ohio State showed that they could be vulnerable this year?
Yes, absolutely. Because there was at one point, because I picked Ohio State to win -14 in Carolines yesterday, there was a point where I was like, well, joke's on me. I guess Ohio State isn't necessarily what we expected them to be this year. And I kind of felt silly putting them in my top 4 yesterday for our college football playoff projections. I think they proved that they can be vulnerable, but I think they also proved something that's incredibly valuable is their ability to come back, even when they go down.
Well, is it the ability to come back, or is it the ability to come back against Minnesota? Like, do they have the ability to come back against Penn State?
Who else are they going to – how good is Penn State going to be this year? Because they went 2-8 last year, 3-7?
Penn State's a top 20 team right now.
Now.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying they're a top 20 team.
Coastal Carolina is also a top 20 team.
Right, and if you get down to a top 20 team, can you come back? Because Minnesota's not. I mean, that's the way that I'm looking at it, is if Ohio State's defense was garbage last night. Yeah. I mean, just garbage. And we know they have good players on their team. Now, I wonder if that's, Kerry Combs and the Vrabel tree of defensive coordinating that was showing its ugly face last night on the Ohio State defense. I'm not passing in judgment, though. But I do wonder, if that's a good team in the Big Ten, if that's Wisconsin, if that's last night, they had to have – I thought Olave last night was just sensational.
I
thought he was
I didn't expect anything
Smith.
Different.
Well, Olave's always been a good player, but I thought he was like Devontae Smith last year good. I mean, he was – that one play on the sideline where he juked that guy out and came back in and ran into the end zone for a touchdown.
And that was such intelligent running from a wide receiver. He understands what he needs to do. He made sure that his foot was in the right spot.
But if you're playing a team that's good on defense and is going to take one guy away, can that quarterback last night for Ohio State, can he bring them back in a game? And I'm not convinced he can. I mean, I'm just going off of last night's game, and I think there is something to be excited about when it comes to Ohio State, and that is that they do not look like a perfect team. I mean, they play Oregon next week. So as far as we're talking about, well, they could do that against Minnesota and come back, can they do that next week against Oregon if they get down and come all the way back and win? So I think nothing but positive thoughts if you're like me and you're rooting against Ohio State last night.
What do we even know about Oregon? Because, to be honest, I don't really know what their expectations are this year.
I'm going to guess Oregon. That's a good question you ask, and I don't really know the answer because I don't really care about Pac-12 football, and I'm not sure that last year the Pac-12 gave us any reason to care about Pac-12 football. I'm going to guess Oregon is better than 90% of the teams in the Big Ten. So take Ohio State.
Including Minnesota or no?
Yeah. Take Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin. Is there anybody else in the Big Ten worth throwing into this mix? No.
Iowa?
No. So take those 3 teams out. I think Oregon's probably right there. Like Oregon's with that group and not with the rest of the group. Not with Rutgers, not with Illinois, not with Nebraska, not with all those bums. Well, what else do we have in the text line? 615-737-1025 here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday.
Craig texts into the text line and says, Tennessee is my second favorite, with Notre Dame being my favorite. I told a buddy last night that was the ugliest 38-6 win I've ever seen. If Notre Dame had played that way against Bowling Green, my first thought would be we are in for a long year.
So Steve Crackthorpe was the coach at Louisville when I got there, and they played Murray State in their first game. And they were supposed to be, national title contenders, and Bobby Petrino was the coach. They went to the Orange Bowl. And when Tom Jurich fired Steve Cragthorpe, because I think they went like 6-5 or 6-6 the first year, 6-6 the second year, 5-7 the second year, and they were 4-8 the third year, and then Cragthorpe got fired. And he said in the press conference when he fired him, the athletic director, said, I knew in the first quarter of the first game, the fourth quarter of the first game, that it wasn't going to work. That he'd hired this coach, and he was going to owe him all this money, and in the fourth quarter of the first game, he knew. The one thing I'll stop short of with Tennessee last night and how boring of a game that was and how terrible that Bowling Green team was, I can't say that about Heupel. I can't say that based upon the ugliness of last night's game that I know that this guy is not going to be the coach that brings Tennessee back. I can't say that. And I think maybe, you're looking at the circumstances here, and that was a game that Louisville won like 70-10. But they thought they had a national title contending team. We know the Vols aren't going to be very good this year. I can't say with Heupel. I don't think you can say anything definitive about Heupel off of last night's game. And I think that's a good thing because last night's game was so ugly. What's next?
Chris in Nashville says, in response to our Vol hate talk, time to switch to Hannity. Woohoo.
Oh, I think he's talking about last night.
Oh, last night.
So he's probably watching the game last night, and like how we switched to Ohio State, he switched
to Hannity.
To the Sean Hannity show, which I think, I'm not here to judge. Everybody's entitled to watch whatever show they want to watch at whatever time they want to watch. Everybody knows that I watch all the news shows, so I know them all. But I think it probably says something about you as a sports fan that your thought is not, let me flip to Boise State and UCF, or let me flip to Ohio State, who might get upset by Minnesota. It's, let me flip to Fox News. So I'm watching the Vols. Let me flip to Fox News. Not the other games that are on, but let me flip to Fox News. That, I think,
hey, everyone can watch whatever they want.
Hey, I'm not telling you what you can watch over here. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll hit some headlines with Caroline. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there right now while I have your attention that ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen tonight, Nashville SC versus New York City at Nissan Stadium. Pregame 6:15, and the match starts at 6:30 tonight. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game. Someone texted into the text line on this Fireball Hot Take Friday when we were talking about the Big Ten, said that we left out Indiana. I think they can beat Wisconsin.
I think they could. I think that, like, from what I saw from Indiana last year, I think fans have the right to be encouraged, but I'm not quite up there with Ohio State.
Time for headlines with Caroline.
Officially informed teams that they cannot sell sponsorships to cryptocurrency trading firms, including, so they let them know that last month about cryptocurrency, but now they've just announced that NFL teams will not have the right to sell NFTs, so non-fungible tokens, kind of like the NBA Top Shot.
Oh yeah,
I get emails this past year.
As a Predators ticket holder, I get emails like every week that's like, our new NFT is out for you to buy. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
So it's basically like you invest in a moment or a play or like a historic game-changing play. You own the rights to that video. So like you're investing into it. Like somebody bought a LeBron James play, like a LeBron James 3 to win some game. I don't know what it was, for like $250,000.
So is
like
this
now they own the rights to that video.
Is this like one of those things where you're basically buying the rights to the this broadcast is presented by the NFL and ABC, and without express written consent from the NFL or from ABC, can the accounts and descriptions of this game be disseminated, or else you'll go to jail?
See, I don't
is that what
100%
that is?
know.
So it's like you own Kirk Gibson's home run in the '88 World Series.
See,
so then when somebody
that's what I don't know.
You,
so when they use that highlight,
right?
Like,
so when the Dodgers want to use like great moments in Dodgers history, gotta call Jimmy. He owns Kirk Gibson's home run. Is that what that is?
So I don't know, and I would have to think that it is, because why else would you buy that? Why else would you invest in it when you can't get money back?
That's not what I think that is. That's not what I think.
I think it's more so just like you buy it almost like a trading card or a ball.
This is what
like
I
it's
think,
just something that you own now.
This is what I think this NFT is. I think an NFT is like a digital version of that Eddie George picture on the wall right there.
Yes.
That's like, okay,
it's like a digital trading card.
This digital Eddie George picture. And I think that is so stupid. What's next?
Well, I think it's the same, like collectors. Like, you know, if you're going to buy
here when you're in the NFL, you get all the trading cards and whatever. It's like part of the deal, you know. They just give you all the trading cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been in his garage, but I haven't gone snooping through his garage. Though Ian, you know, if I got the opportunity to go snooping through,
that would be fun.
God, would
he probably has some cool stuff in there.
He's got his draft boards in there.
Oh, cool.
So, like, if I got the opportunity to snoop, I'd go snooping. But he told me that he had, like, all these trading cards in there. And so when a Brady rookie card sold for, like, $2.5 million, I texted Sean, his son. I'm like, dude. I'm like, you got...
Okay.
So, you know, but I guess Sean probably wasn't going to take me up on that offer.
Yeah, probably not. It's like old Disney VHS tapes go for, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But Sally might. That might be who I need to call. I might need to call Sally right now. Be like, hey, Sally, clean out the garage. See Tom Brady
I'll help
card,
you
$2 million.
sweep things around if you want to toss me a $2.5 million baseball or football card.
There you go. What's next?
So it was just announced today salary from this year into a bonus, which allows the team to prorate the bonus over the remaining years of his contract, create cap space this year, which they kind of need. And I've seen a lot of a lot of tweets about this, but we discussed this when Ryan Tannehill restructured his contract to create a little bit of cap space.
When he extended his contract. So I don't know the ins and outs of this contract, but I don't know if necessarily saying, wow, Mike Evans is a team player, he's doing this for his team, is it accurate? In one check right now, or we can give it to you, in monthly installments, so you get 12 checks, but they equal $30,000. Like, I think we invest it. But that's all this is. So the idea of like, oh, he's really, boy, I'll tell you.
Respect to Mike Evans.
For the team, when somebody takes less money, that's when you say okay.
Right. When you take a pay cut.
That's when you say okay.
Yeah.
What else?
So MLB has administrative leave on July 2nd, and I believe it is 2 weeks at a time. So they have extended his administrative leave from July 2nd to September 10th, and I don't know how many.
Now, does he get a say in this at any point to say, like, no? Like, no, I haven't been charged with a crime, so no.
I don't know if he has a say in it. I think it's the MLB Player Association.
Right, but doesn't the Players Association have to take up on his side?
I don't know.
I think they have to. The Players Association has to represent the player. It's like, so if the guy... Like, if somebody kills somebody, It's like when Vontez Burfict goes specifics about the Bauer thing, he might have been charged. I think he might have actually been charged. But he hasn't been found guilty of anything.
No, and he has not testified.
But at any point, can he say, like, hey, I'm done with this. I want to come back and pitch? I mean, it sounds pretty vicious what he did, but I've heard his side of the story. I've heard her side of the story. I don't know enough about it to have an opinion either way.
He has not testified, and he has pled the fifth.
He wants to come back and pitch. Could he do that?
That's what I don't know.
So I don't know, but it sounds like they're just going to keep extending this until the end of time. I don't know if he'll ever pitch in baseball again. Those are headlines with Caroline. Coming up next, boy, the Julio story's picked up some heat. What we reported yesterday, and I find it odd the way I feel like most people, not all, have responded to this idea that there could be an issue with Julio. We'll get to that coming up next here on Stillman and Company. You know what there's no issues with? Getting old, because we all know it stinks. So when you get old, you start to feel old. And when you start to feel old, you have two choices. You can either sit there and get older by the day, or you can do something about it. And that's why I love my friends at Invigorate Health. Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet, they will take great care of you. Whether it's an IV therapy you need, where again, they just put that thing right in your veins and they can increase mental capacity, relieve stress, revitalize skin and hair, bolster immune systems, full body detox. You need a cold and flu recovery, they've got it. Whether it's hormone therapy replacement, I've seen a lot of people that are skeptical about hormone therapy, and then they go and they do it. They get their testosterone levels checked out. It's like, wow, I need you to help me out. And those trained doctors, physicians, and nurses, they know exactly what they're doing at Invigorate Health, and boom, they pop you right in there, and all of a sudden you feel like you're 25, 26 again, and you don't feel like you're 48, 49 anymore. And they've also got M-Sculpt Neo. So if you've got that fat right there on the belly or your hips or your thighs or whatever it may be, and you need just a little bit of work, M-Sculpt Neo, it's non-invasive, and it tones you up, adds muscle, cuts fat. I'm telling you, it is fantastic. 93% average visible reduction in cellulite when you go with the M-Sculpt Neo. But the thing about Invigorate Health is that they'll get whatever you need for you. It is customized. Their doctors will customize a plan for you. It's not, oh yeah, let's just do what we do for everybody. Nope. They will customize it. And I'm telling you, you need to give them a call today. 615-288-4777. InvigorateHealthTN.com. Those are my friends at Invigorate Health. Again, if you're feeling old, think about it for a little bit. And then if you're like, you know what, I want to give it a try, InvigorateHealthTN.com. Invigorate Health, they are not far away. They are simple, easy to use, great people as well. And I love them. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The Game Fireball Hot Take Friday. Some roster moves for the Titans, if you would like. The Titans have activated Harold Landry from the COVID-19 list, which is good. We reported on the show that he was positive for COVID, but had both vaccinations. And so he wasn't feeling, mild symptoms. And so he's obviously over it and ready to go. He'll be there next week against Arizona. They have also activated Racey McMath from the COVID-19 list.
How long do you think he stays post-activation from the COVID list?
So here's what I don't understand. I thought they were at 53, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Well,
and they haven't taken anyone off the 53-man roster.
So they yesterday they put guys on IR. So we can, do all the number crunching all we want. They placed Brady Breeze on IR. So he's out for 3 weeks at least.
Munyer's on IR.
Munyer's on IR. Darrington Evans is on IR. Marcus Johnson is on IR. There's a lot of it. But they placed Brady Breeze just now on IR. And they signed Michael Pruitt to the practice squad. They released Miller Forrestal, the rookie from Alabama, tight end. They released him from the practice squad. So Michael Pruitt is back on the practice squad. And I'm going to bet good money that Michael Pruitt is one of those guys that gets elevated up off the practice squad every week.
I would not be surprised by that whatsoever.
I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that he's up off the practice squad almost every week and then put on the active roster. I mean, Michael Pruitt, he's a big part of what they've done the last couple of years. So those are the roster moves. So a story yesterday that we dug a little bit deeper on, Arthur Blank very critical of Julio Jones in The Athletic. And by very critical, I almost feel like critical to where you could tell Arthur Blank wasn't happy and he wanted to let everybody know that he wasn't happy while being cordial at the same time. We dug a little bit deeper. We talked about the fact that what we had heard is in Atlanta, Julio didn't want to practice, which I say that and everybody gets all like, well, we know Julio's not a big practicer and older players don't practice all the time and his body needs to heal from injury and he needs that.
Yes.
It's not so much about the not practicing because you're hurt. Nobody said last year, nobody questioned Dennis Kelly, who missed 1 or 2 days per week of practice. And nobody said, I think Dennis Kelly is out there dogging it. Nobody said that. That's not what they're saying in Atlanta about Julio. They're saying he didn't even want to go to walkthroughs. He just didn't want to go, so he didn't go. And that he'd come off the field in big situations, and he'd come off the field on third down and 2-minute drills. And when they had a play designed for him, he came off the field. A trick play. And I was talking to Chase about this. And I said, imagine when you run a trick play in the NFL, you can only run it once. Because once you run it, it's on tape and everybody knows what it is. And when you line up in that formation, they know, hey, watch this. What if on one of those Bill Belichick trick plays where they throw the ball to Julian Edelman and he throws the ball to somebody else? What if on one of those plays, Edelman checked himself out of the game? And now you're asking N'Keal Harry to throw the ball. Well, N'Keal Harry wasn't a college quarterback. Those plays are designed for Edelman. The Falcons, in a game against Carolina, called one of those plays, and Julio ran off the field. Like, at that point, I mean, what are you supposed to do? I think it's a bad look for Julio when I hear stuff like that from sources I trust. Titan fans, and you are on the text line, so you would know this better than I would, but I feel like the response from Titan fans to that yesterday was not, well, you know what, I don't think Vrabel will put up with that, which I'm not sure Vrabel will put up with, or, well, he's not going to be able to act like that around here. Julio's got to shape up. Julio's got to. I think the response is, well, the Falcons stink, so who cares? He wanted out. He didn't want to be there.
It was very much so. Well, he did that in Atlanta, but he's not. He's in Tennessee now, so everything's changed.
So Julio sabotaged his own team, and everybody's okay with it because, well, it'll be different here. And I hear that, and I think that sounds like the parents, and we all know who they are, but the parents who it's never their kid's fault. It's always the teacher's fault. It's always the coach's fault. It's always his best buddy's fault. He's a bad influence on our son. Our son would never do that. Tell it to the judge because you're at a juvenile trial right now, and just so you know, your son's got some issues.
And it's like the friend who keeps saying that they have like really, really terrible exes and they just, they keep going through significant others. And it's like after a while, you might be the problem.
But I will say this, though. I'm not surprised by that response. I told you yesterday, I told Ryan before I broke the story about, again, Julio sabotaged his own team at one point. At least that's the way I interpret him running off the field on a gadget play designed for him. Is screw you guys. That's how I felt about it. I felt like, when it comes to diva receiver, we all think it's the same. And we think that a diva receiver is, a Keyshawn Johnson who writes a book called Give Me the Damn Ball. Or it's Randy Moss with his quote, the I play when I want to play, which people forget about Randy Moss pre-Patriots and pre-television. Randy Moss had a horrible reputation. Like, one time I asked Floyd, and Floyd and Randy are friends now because they were together in New England. And you know the New England brotherhood, that if you're in New England and I'm in New England, then we can't say anything about anything. And this was Hall of Fame weekend when Randy got inducted. And I wanted to do a segment on the show about Randy Moss. And the one thing that everybody, if they want to say something bad about Floyd, was that he drafted Kevin Dyson over Randy Moss. And if you're a fan of this show, you know that he defended that. Like, you know how sometimes I say, like, hey, I will go to my grave thinking, I promise you that never for a day in his life did Floyd Reese ever think it was a bad idea to draft Kevin Dyson over Randy Moss. And the reason why is because Randy had so many off-the-field issues in college. And it wasn't like Randy was a saint in the NFL. Randy got sent out of Minnesota. Randy got sent out of Oakland. Randy went to New England, and they were the best team I've ever seen in my entire life. And then he got run out of New England, and then he just kind of kept going around. And so diva receivers are not just one shape or size. To me, Julio's not a vocal, go into the media guy and, rat his brains out about somebody that he hates. He's a crosses his arms and I'm not going to do it guy. That's what Julio is when things don't go his way. And it's very clear that contract in Atlanta, where Atlanta thought they were giving him a boatload of money and making him the highest paid wide receiver and all these good things, clearly was an issue because he didn't think it was good enough. So he felt like he was disrespected. So, arms crossed. I'm not going to walkthrough. I'm not going to practice. I'm not playing in that play that is designed for me. And I hear that, and I see all the fans are like, well, it's Atlanta. Pfft, I'm glad. He wanted out of Atlanta. I'd want to leave, too, if they lost 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Like, you realize, like, getting to the Super Bowl is really hard. Not everybody gets to the Super Bowl. Like, I just want everybody to know that. And there's no guarantee that he's getting to the Super Bowl here. And I look at this, and I'm not saying they should cut Julio. I'm not saying I do. Chase brought this up, today on Darren Donick and Chase, that he hopes that John Robinson, who worked in New England with Thomas Dimitroff, that he talked to Thomas Dimitroff about this, and that Thomas was honest with him and shot him straight about, hey, these were some of the issues we have with Julio or whatever. Because if not, then that's a bad job on John Robinson's part of not doing the full research as to what was going down in Atlanta, especially when Arthur Smith was the coach who got there. And as Arthur Blank said, Julio would not have fit what Arthur Smith was trying to do in Atlanta. That should be concerning. I thought Joe Rexrode had a good point today when he's like, I hope that this intensifies the need for Julio to know, hey, there are certain ways to do things in Tennessee, and you're not going to do them the way you did them in Atlanta. I hope that that's right. But when I hear the Titan fans that texted in, called in yesterday, tweeted in yesterday, we got a lot of response to that story. The majority of it, am I fair in characterizing it as the majority of it was, well, that was Atlanta. Anybody would have done that in Atlanta, and he's coming here, and he's...
That's fair. A lot of the texts were, well, what if that was just frustration with losing, frustration with the coaching staff, frustration with the Falcons, rather than Julio having an attitude problem?
You don't think he's going to get frustrated here? Like, it's not all rainbow and sunshine all the time. Derrick Henry sat on the bench for 2 years. Derrick Henry was benched in favor of Dion Lewis at one point with Mike Vrabel as the coach. And one of the strengths of Derrick Henry is that you never heard him complain about it once. So here's what I think. I think at some point, Julio's going to test Vrabel. Like any child would do, They're going to see with authority, how much can I get away with? And I wonder how Vrabel is going to react when that moment comes. And I don't know how Vrabel's going to react. I know this. If Todd Downing calls out a gadget play that's designed for Julio and Julio runs off the field, Vrabel's not going to be happy about it. But then what do? Because you can't cut Julio.
You're already invested.
You're invested financially. You're invested with a pick. You can't cut Julio Jones. You can't suspend Julio Jones. What do? And that's where we'll see. That's where, when I talk about the red flag, that's where I look at it and I think, we'll see. I have a friend who's a doctor, and he's been in the COVID ICU for 18 months. And I ask him questions about the future of this or that or whatever, and he tells me, I think it might be this way. I think it might be that way. We'll see. And every time I talk to him about the future of COVID, because he doesn't know, the future, I always think back to like talks that I'd have with, coaches or general managers. And it's like you say, hey, with Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, you should have the best offense in the league. And they'll be like, I'll tell you, I hope, but they don't know. And so when it comes to Julio, I don't know if the attitude problems that were clearly evident in Atlanta and so evident that unprompted, the owner of the team brought it up 3 months after they traded him, that if those attitude problems start here, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how Tannehill and Henry are going to respond to that. I don't know how Vrabel's going to respond to that. But I'm just keeping it in the back of my head that this is something we should all be worried about. And at the line of, well, it's Atlanta, I'm not buying that.
Well, hard times aren't exclusive to Atlanta.
No, and they definitely have happened around here a lot. And 2-4 in 2019, and everybody thought the season was over, and it was a unmitigated disaster. So what do we make of it? 615-737-1025. We'll get your reaction in on that. Chris Sanders, by the way, has an interesting thought on this. I want to get to that next. Again, Julio's got attitude problems in the past. I think it would be very optimistic of us just to dismiss the Julio attitude problems going forward. We'll have what Chris has to say about it next. And, of course, your reaction. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, Stillman and Company, right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. I hate moving, and I love my home so much that I never have to do it again. But if I do, there's no doubt in my mind the first people I'm calling are my friends at TriStar Moving. Why? Because I used TriStar Moving when I moved here, and they made the moving process so simple. That's why their motto is TriStar Movers with 5-star service. From the initial phone call to the final signature, moving became a breeze. Unlike installing my dishwasher, which was not. Moving was a breeze. They took great care of all of my furniture, mattresses and protective bags, TVs and protective boxes. Everything made its way over to my new home, and I absolutely love them. Their owners, Garrett and Robert, true Nashvillians, and they are really, really, really focused on taking care of their hometown, and that's why their business is on the rise, and they are the real deal. So give my friends at TriStar Moving a call. All you got to do is give them a call, 615-640-1219, or visit their website at nashvillemoving.org/radio. They'll give you 5% off your entire move. TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, or visit them at nashvillemoving.org/radio and tell them Jared Stillman sent you for 5% off your entire move. TriStar Moving, my official movers.
John, the Falcons owner said yesterday that Julio Jones not practicing over years was kind of a sticking point with the coaches and front office there. Are you concerned at all about that long term with him here?
No, I mean, I know he prepares every single day. He's in here early. He's working to make sure he's ready to go. He did some stuff yesterday, and we'll kind of see how it goes the rest of the week. And I'm excited to watch him out there on Sundays.
There you go. That was John Robinson on Julio Jones in the Atlanta Report. Good job, John Robinson, saying nothing. Hey, he's working. He's in here all the time. I will say this. Remember the opening press conference that Julio Jones had? Where like Vrabel had, and then Julio, is during OTAs, it was on Zoom, and it was, hey, I'm all about winning. I don't care about stats. I don't care about getting the ball. I don't care. I love AJ's a beast, and Derek's a beast, and Ryan's a beast.
And when he said it, I believed it.
I think there was a talk. I think that Thomas Dimitroff probably told John Robinson all the things that I told you guys yesterday. That they had a play designed for Julio, and he didn't run out on the field. And I bet that he told John Robinson that. And so John Robinson knew it. I mean, between what was there with Dimitroff, which was a Patriot guy, and we obviously know Vrabel and Robinson, Patriots. Mm-hmm. And then when Dimitroff gets bumped out, it's Arthur Smith who gets put in. And I'm guessing that they have a pretty good relationship with Arthur. I'm guessing that they knew about this stuff. I'd be shocked if they didn't know. I'm guessing there was a long talking to between Vrabel and Robinson and Julio. And remember all the talks that Vrabel said he had with Nick Saban?
Uh-huh.
I wonder if that was because Vrabel can't talk to Julio before they acquire Julio. That's tampering. I think maybe that instead of, we all think it's, what kind of guy is Julio, Coach Saban? I think it was one of those, hey, we heard he did this in Atlanta. And I think Nick may have been, and I don't know Nick well enough to ask him anything like this, but I think Coach Saban could have been like, let me talk to him. Mm-hmm. And then, Saban, hey, you're not going to go to Tennessee and do that. I'm just throwing that out there as I got to believe they know.
It's very much so a possibility. And that was my question that I asked you yesterday. Why is this not a better known thing, at least amongst the public? But maybe it's something that people inside the NFL knew.
I don't think Dan Quinn is a put it all out there guy like that. Because if there was
the head coach doesn't need to put it out there in order for people to know about it.
But, yeah, I mean, somebody has to leak it. Julio's not going to leak that I ran out of the game when a play was called for me.
Yeah.
So somebody has to leak it. And I think Arthur Blank going on the record, Willie said this today on Darren Donick and Chase, and I agree with it. I think Arthur Blank going on the record the way he did the other day, I think Arthur Blank was pissed at Julio.
Oh, yeah, because why else would he put that out there?
And I think he was angry because he felt like he gave Julio this really nice contract. Like if I've never had $60 million, but if I did have $60 million and I gave that to somebody and then they were ungrateful for it, I think I'd be pretty disappointed too. Mm-hmm. And then if they were causing all these problems in my billion-dollar organization and every day I had to put out a fire because the guy didn't want to go to walkthroughs, I think I'd be pretty upset too. So when you ask about so how did we not know? Like, dude, we knew. Like Arthur Blank told us. The only reason that I found this story out is because Arthur Blank said that, and I followed up with people I knew. Mm-hmm. I talked to media people there. I talked to people there. I mean, like I talked to and so the only time stuff like that gets out is when people want it to get out. Chris Sanders texted me though. It is Fireball Hot Take Friday, and this was Chris's hot take. He said the same standard they held Des Fitzpatrick to is the same way they should treat Julio. That sounds great. And I do think that's the Vrabel way is, hey, you come into this building, we're going to treat you a certain way. And what is it Vrabel always says? The way I treat you is the way you treat the team. Mm-hmm. Like that's Vrabel's mentality. Okay, I get it. That's how Vrabel wants to be. Vrabel's always about that kind of stuff. What are you going to do when push comes to shove? What did you do last year when push came to shove? You cut Beasley. But you didn't invest a second-round pick into Vic Beasley. You signed him to $9.5 million. Beasley didn't do his thing. Gone. Can you do that with Julio? Because I am convinced, and I don't know Julio, but I'm convinced that right now everybody's kissing and hugging and loving each other because they think they're all going to go to the Super Bowl. It's like John Robinson said, there's 31 other teams that think they're going to the Super Bowl this year. But when things don't go your way, and all throughout an NFL season, they're not going to go your way. And when that happens, I think Julio's going to try to see what he can get away with. And then the question has to be, what's Vrabel going to do?
And I understand Chris's point, and in a black and white world, that absolutely makes sense. But the NFL is very gray. And I'll bring it back to the point that we made a few weeks ago about COVID, is it's okay for, or, these fringe guys, maybe like the third and fourth team players, they need to get vaccinated because that could be the difference between making their team and not. But if it's your starting quarterback, if it's your star wide receiver, star running back, they can make the team and not be vaccinated.
Sure.
So players are held to a different standard when you have a certain level of talent. Des Fitzpatrick and Julio Jones are not equal players. So I hear, Chris, when you say that every single player should be set to the same standard. They should approach every player the same way. I hear that, and I respect that, but that's not the way that the NFL is.
Who was it, Jimmy Johnson, that said, I'll treat you fair, but I'm not treating you equal? There was somebody who said something, I forget who it was. I'll say this, though. Like, if they have a plan in place for Julio to not practice in order so that, because he's older and injuries and okay. But if there's a walkthrough and they need Julio out there and they expect Julio out there and Julio doesn't show up, Vrabel's got a problem. Mm-hmm. And that is where Chris may be right. That is, you got to suspend him.
Yeah.
Like, you got to conduct detrimental to the team. You got to do something. Because if you don't do that, you lose the whole locker room. Again, everybody likes Julio now. Jerry Stackhouse, and I don't have a lot of respect for Jerry Stackhouse because he says a lot of crazy things. But Jerry Stackhouse played on the Washington Wizards, and he went to North Carolina, and he grew up idolizing Michael Jordan, and so he goes to Carolina and plays for Dean Smith, just like Michael Jordan, and then he's on the Washington Wizards as a young, good player in the NBA, and Michael Jordan shows up. And now they're running all the plays for Michael Jordan, and Jerry Stackhouse said that one of the things that bothered him was, he felt like it kind of was a little ruined. Like it ruined what Michael Jordan was to him because he thought Michael was kind of being selfish in how they wanted everything catered around Michael. And at this point, Michael's 40 years old. Mm-hmm. At this point, Jerry Stackhouse thought he was a better player than Michael Jordan. Now, he might have been, I don't know, I don't remember it. Jerry Stackhouse says a bunch of crazy things. But regardless of that, Jerry Stackhouse grew up idolizing Michael Jordan. Then after being around Michael Jordan, it's kind of like, it's kind of ruined what I thought about Michael Jordan. So the idea, well, AJ idolizes Julio. Julio starts messing things up, that's going to change. And I think that that's the point of Vrabel has to be prepared in his mind for what you do when that happens. When you run a play for Julio Jones, number 2 blast or what, some play that is literally designed for Julio, and you dial it up, and he runs out off the field, and Nick Westbrook-Akina has to run on the field, what are you going to do? Because Ryan Tannehill's not going to be happy. Derrick Henry's not going to be happy. A.J. Brown's not going to be happy. Anthony Ferguson's not going to be happy. And if you treat Julio like a special case here, then you're going to start to lose the respect from those other guys. So the one thing I know in my heart is I don't think Vrabel's putting up with the shenanigans. And I think they would suspend Julio. I think they would bench Julio. I think if push came to shove, I think they would cut Julio if it got that bad. But then again, they have too much invested in him. When Antonio Brown went crazy in Oakland, and everybody said, what about Antonio Brown? Anytime Antonio Brown's available, we literally can do a whole week of 4 hours of should the Titans sign Antonio Brown. It's an unbelievable phenomenon. And Floyd said that he would take AB at his price. But he's not taking AB at AB's price.
No.
Because then you're committed to trying to make it work with AB. But if AB gets released, you tell Antonio Brown, we'll give you $8 million if, and then I get to dictate the terms. Then you can say, okay, AB, if you step out of line, see ya. Well, they can't do that with Julio because they spent a second-round pick and $15 million. So it's a tough situation. I think everybody's hoping for the best. but I wonder if Vrabel's prepared for the worst. 615-737-1025. I see you lining up on the calls and the text. 615-737-1025. We'll get to you next because since it is your day, it's a Fireball Hot Take Friday here on Stillman and Company. And do you think Vrabel is prepared if Julio Jones does act up like he reportedly did in Atlanta? What do we think? 615-737-1025. Plus, Darren said something that I do kind of agree with. We'll get to that coming up next. Used car shopping, new car shopping, car buying, it is stressful. It's a big purchase. Might be if you buy a car in a certain year, it might be the biggest purchase you make that year. And it's stressful. Buying a car can be overwhelming, especially now that the demand is back and it is popping for cars. Luckily, my friends at Edmunds have been taking the stress out of car buying for over 50 years. Their editors drive over 500,000 miles every year, testing thousands of hundreds on cars of new vehicles. They review almost every car on the market and rank the best ones in each category. Selected by Edmunds editors, they've got the top-rated awards that are based on extensive testing and a ranking process, which considers performance, comfort, technology, fuel economy, and value. When you go to Edmunds, you will know it inside and out because of how much they drive these cars. So they make it easy for you. Skip cars you don't need to test drive because, that doesn't work for me. No, skip those. Edmunds is here to guide you to your perfect vehicle. Visit Edmunds.com to see their best car rankings and search for vehicles near you. That's EDMUNDS.com. For cars, there's Edmunds.
good luck over there in Nashville.
Thank you.
From the Atlanta perspective, could you shed some light on how we went from Falcon for life to you won the trade to, Tennessee?
Yeah, that's just me and the Falcons. We have an agreement at the end of the day. We discussed everything, and we just made the decision. I mean, it's just cut and dry. It's nothing to it. It's football, it's business. So you just got to accept whatever happens. So it's just, like I said, just mutual agreement on it, and we just split up. So
I had a friend in college who went through a breakup with like their college girlfriend for years. Like 3 or 4 years they were together, like inseparable. They break up. And I asked, it was 2 girls, and I asked her, I said, so why did you guys break up? Because I didn't even know they broke up. One of my friends said, hey, why did so-and-so break up? So I asked her, said, why did y'all break up? She said, we had just kind of moved apart, separately in our lives, and we were just kind of feeling like, it was time for us to move apart. I said, okay. So I told my friend, hey, that's what she said. Well, then the other girl texted my friend and said, yeah, whatever she just told Jared's a lie. She cheated on me.
Ooh.
Did that not kind of feel like when you heard what Julio said right there? And this was at his, introductory press conference with the Titans during OTAs, in which, it's business. We just decided to go our separate ways. We just kind of, it's football. It's just business. And then it's Arthur Blank. Yeah, I tell you, there's a lot to unpack here, and I just want to, it's So I'm just saying that.
Well, if I'm in the wrong, I don't necessarily want to admit my wrongs every time. I'll say things to make it look like I wasn't in the wrong.
So let's get to your phones, because I promised phones, and, I'm a guy who likes to promise and keep their promises. 615-737-1025, text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What do we have?
Mark from Terrace texts in and says, Jimmy Johnson cut the backup to Emmitt Smith because he fell asleep watching game film. No way do I cut Emmitt for that. The NBA and the NFL do have different rules for stars and average players. It's not fair, but it is what it is.
So look up for me the Adalius Thomas getting sent home in New England. Because remember who the coach is here, and it's Mike Vrabel. And remember where he came from, and it's New England. Mm-hmm. And, the Titans do things the Patriot way here. One time at the Combine, Terry Robisky was rolling around, and we said, Terry, whatever. We talked about Terry Robisky coming on the show or something, and Terry's like, oh, you got to talk to Coach about that. Coach doesn't want anybody, And Floyd laughed, and I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's Patriots. That's how the Patriots do things. There was a blizzard. Adalius Thomas is a Pro Bowl linebacker on the Patriots. This was, I think, when Vrabel was there.
This was 2009.
Vrabel was there. So Vrabel's on the Patriots, and there's this blizzard of a linebacker, of a storm that goes through New England. I lived up there. It's wild.
Yeah, it's scary.
Adalius Thomas doesn't make it into the facility in time because traffic is jammed and he can't go anywhere. It's not like Adalius didn't wake up. It's not like he didn't want to be there. It's not like, and Bill Belichick suspends him and sends him home.
He said he almost got in a car accident on his way to the stadium.
Almost got in his car accident on the way to practice. And Bill's like, gotta go.
Bye.
Gotta go. Gotta go. And I want to say I think I had heard that story, not just what it was reported, but also what, I had heard. I cannot see Vrabel putting up with Julio making an issue to the football team.
Which is a much larger offense than showing up to practice late.
In
the middle of a snowstorm.
The one thing I will have to say is there's a chance that Julio comes here and acts 100% professionally and doesn't take himself out on 2-minute drills. And when they run a play design for him, that he's out there and he runs it. There's a chance that happens, and you have no problems because the culture you set, and maybe all of you are right, and the culture you set with Vrabel and Tannehill and Henry and Byard, a doofus. Maybe that. I still think, what do I do? What else we got in the text line?
Rob from Clarksville texts in and says, Jared has lost his mind. Julio Jones was one of the most dominant receivers in the NFL during his time in Atlanta. Never heard one word about problems or attitude problems, and it could not have missed many plays with all the yards and catches he was putting up and breaking records.
So Carlos Medina hosts a show in Atlanta on 680 The Fan. He's a good friend of mine, and I texted him yesterday. And I said, is Julio a bad teammate? ? He said, quote, he just never practices and plays about 60% of the snaps on game day. Anything more, and he tends to get hurt over the past 2 years. So for people to say, Julio's so good, the stats don't lie, because TD said this yesterday. You know, the stats are so good, Julio, that stats don't lie.
But what stats are we looking at? From what year?
Randy Moss is in the Hall of Fame. T.O.'s in the Hall of Fame. I keep going back to T.O. on this. And I'm not saying Julio's T.O., but I think T.O. is the most extreme example that everybody knows of a just fundamentally dominant player. T.O. was a great player. He was big. He was strong. He could get the ball. You put it near him. T.O. was the best wide receiver in the NFL, arguably, for a decade. And he was a problem everywhere he went. He was a problem in San Francisco. He was a problem in Philadelphia. He was a problem in Dallas. By the way, you know Andy Reid, the coach in Philadelphia, who's now the coach in Kansas City, he's worked with Tyreek Hill, but he couldn't work with T.O. So I get the idea of like, Julio's so good, you don't know what you're talking about. T.O. was freaking awesome.
You can be really good and still have attitude
T.O.
problems. Those two are not mutually exclusive.
Especially at that position. That position, it's so hard to not be selfish because you have to win on every play, and then they may not even throw the ball to you. You could run the best route of the entire game, be wide open for a touchdown, and if your quarterback doesn't see you, you get no credit and no respect from anybody for what you did. 3rd down and 2 against the Ravens in the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill throws it short to Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith drops the ball. Probably wouldn't have been a first down anyways. And then Vrabel inexplicably punts the ball on the next play. Everybody remembers that. What people don't remember is on that play, Cameron Batson was standing in the middle of the field with his hands up in the air like this, saying, give me the ball, doing jumping jacks practically.
Like, look.
Asking for the ball. This is 3rd and 2. If you get the ball to Cam Batson, because there's a guy on Batson and a guy on Jonnu, they run a crossing route. You know, they run a pick. Both guys go with Jonnu. Cam Batson standing in the middle of the field. If Ryan Tannehill gives the ball to Cam Batson, there is one guy to beat. It's the safety. And if he tackles him, it's probably at like the 7-yard line. Maybe. So you probably tie that game with the Patriots if Tannehill, or the Ravens, if Tannehill just sees Cam Batson in the middle of the field. Tannehill doesn't see Cam Batson in the middle of the field. If you make that play, we probably aren't talking all training camp about Batson or Kinsey, Westbrook Akina or Batson, or because if you're a hero of a playoff game, you probably have your spot on the team next year. So, like, I understand why you got to have an ego at that position. You got to be a little selfish at that position. You got to demand the ball. I get it. But you can't be on the Tennessee Titans and be a bad teammate. Corey Davis, and all of his shortcomings as a wide receiver for where he was picked, Corey Davis never once put off the vibe of being a selfish guy. In fact, the one thing that I think that we don't talk about enough, and you know me, I'm not the biggest Corey Davis fan in the world, but the one thing that I think the Titans are going to miss dearly without Corey Davis is take a look at all those A.J. Brown long touchdowns and those Derrick Henry touchdown runs. And
That's
it's number
because he made the way.
84 is all the way down the field blocking. It's all the way down the field blocking. Somebody texted and said, Kevin Carter. And I actually talked to Kevin Carter today. Said, Kevin Carter's going to be on the show Monday, by the way.
Oh, good.
Kevin Carter said, what was Kevin Carter's reputation when he arrived from St. Louis? It wasn't very good. What was it when he left? Guys can change, good or bad, when they get in new environments. And that's true. Mm-hmm. Kevin Carter only was a Tennessee Titan because they had interviewed Kevin at the draft in 1995 when they drafted Steve McNair. And so they knew Kevin Carter. So when it came out that Kevin was lazy in St. Louis and Kevin was, the Titans said, well, we know Casey's not like that. We got to know him at the combine. We got to know him through the draft process. And so they took the chance. They sent a first-round pick to the Rams, and they got Kevin Carter in return. And Kevin Carter wasn't only a great Titan, and he was a great player, but Kevin Carter still holds charity events in Nashville that raise millions of dollars for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like, he's at golf. We've been at Kevin Carter's golf outings. We've been at his Waiting for Wishes. Kevin Carter sent me a message yesterday and said he wants to come on the show because he wants to talk about Floyd. That's how good of a guy he is. And so I don't disagree with that whatsoever. What I'm saying is it's got to be in Vrabel's head that he's got to be prepared for an issue here because it happened in Atlanta. And we've got to be prepared for an issue because it happened in Atlanta. That's all I'm saying.
Which doesn't mean it's going to happen.
No, I hope it doesn't. 615-737-1025. Titans made some interesting roster moves. What do we make of them? There's one move that I'm kind of surprised by. Everything else kind of makes sense. This one move kind of surprises me. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Fireball Cinema Whiskey. Nothing goes down so smooth and tastes as good as Fireball Cinema Whiskey. There is no better way. This weekend, it's a holiday weekend. People are going to be celebrating. It might be your last weekend out by the pool, out by the lake. There's no better way to celebrate than with ice-cold Fireball Cinema Whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. No better way to ignite the night. And, of course, do it the Nashville way with Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us at the top of the hour. His thoughts on all the Titans moves and whatnot. So the Titans have made some roster moves over the last 2 days. And I think there's a little bit of a tell. And we'll get back to your text in just a second. But I feel like there's a little bit of a tell in some of these roster moves. So remember, you have to make the active roster in order to then go to short-term IR, which is 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So the Titans yesterday placed Darrington Evans, Marcus Johnson, and Daniel Munyer all on injured reserve, which means that after week 3, they could bring them back. So these aren't long-term IR injuries. At least that's not what we think. Which, by the way, Darrington Evans, and we'll get to this in a little bit,
is always hurt.
I mean, I'm getting close to being done with Darrington Evans. I'm like, in the NFL, you get 3 years, because these contracts are 4 years long. You get 3 years of me paying attention. And once you show you're unreliable in year 1 and then you show you're unreliable in year 2, hard for me to think that you're reliable in year 3 or 4.
Right.
So I'd say Darrington Evans, and I don't know what he did, but I'd say I'd work to getting back pretty soon, and I'd work to getting out on that football field and staying out on that football field. So he gets put on IR, as does Marcus Johnson and Daniel Munyer. They add Nick DeZubnar to the active roster from the COVID list. They waived Luke Stalker, so they got rid of Stalker. And then today, they added Harold Landry and Racey McMath to the active roster. They placed Brady Breeze on IR, so he's like Marcus Johnson and all those, so he can come back. Mm-hmm. They signed Michael Pruitt to the practice squad. And I think there's a tell here. I don't think the Titans are going into the season with Anthony Ferkser and Tommy Hudson as the only 2 tight ends they have on the team. I think the reason Luke Stalker got waived is because with these new practice squad rules, they're going to elevate Michael Pruitt up off the practice squad, not have to pay him active roster money, but they're paying him practice squad money, then send him back down, then after week 1, re-sign Luke Stalker or add Jeff Swaim, but that way they're not having to pay Stalker for the whole year, which is what they would owe him if he was on the roster to start the Arizona game. So I think there's a tell there. I think there's one surprise, though, in all of this. That seemed pretty telegraphed. I wasn't surprised by the Barkley move. It tells us Tannehill's going to be okay, but I wouldn't risk it. I would go with 3 quarterbacks just in case. But Barkley's on the practice squad, so you can elevate him. Here's what I take away, though, that I find just Racey McMath on the active roster. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that Racey McMath is going to stay on the active roster. And I don't think there's a team in this league that would claim Racey McMath right now. But are you surprised that the Titans added Racey McMath from the COVID list and did not immediately waive him?
See, that's what I'm wondering is how long will it be until they waive him? And if they don't, are they doing that just for his contribution on special teams? But I don't think that his contribution on special teams would be that robust that they would keep him on the active roster.
I wonder if they look at Racey McMath and they think, let's get him a practice, and so he can't have some kind of grievance that he was on COVID and got cut because of COVID, and let's give him a practice next week on Monday against Arizona, then let's waive him.
Yeah.
But they also have the benefit of giving him a practice on Monday and then waiving him when Nate Davis or Ben Jones or Ryan Tannehill comes back off the IR. So that's the other, or the COVID list, that's the option that they have. Is I cannot see Racey McMath being on this team week 1.
I was just going to say I don't see a situation where Racey McMath stays on the 53-man roster.
Back to your Titans text, 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday.
So Michael from Missouri comments on the Julio possible attitude issues, and Michael from Missouri says, I'm definitely concerned about the Julio issues, and one of my biggest worries is how he might affect A.J. Brown. It seems like A.J. has had a really professional attitude and work ethic so far in his career, but I also think he looks up to Julio. Am I reading too much into this?
What do you think?
I don't think that Julio would rub off on AJ. I think that AJ has enough years and experience under his belt that he knows right from wrong. I think it's a legitimate concern because, to the texter's point, AJ does love Julio. He has made that very much so known. But I don't see if Julio does have a bad attitude. I don't see that rubbing off on A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown seems too much of a Mike Vrabel kind of team first guy to me.
A.J. Brown cried when Marcus Mariota lost his starting job because I think he felt like he let Marcus down. Remember, he dropped the ball in the Indianapolis game.
Mm-hmm.
A.J.'s a team first guy. There's also another thing for A.J. in which a very productive year is important for him. A.J. has a third productive year in a row. He gets a new contract after this year.
Yeah.
And it might be top of the market money. We're talking $20 million a season. Like, that's a lot of money. So there's a lot on the line for A.J., and you might look up to Julio, but I don't think there's any kind of looking up to Julio I could do that would make me sit there and not think about taking care of my family for forever with having a good season this year. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us next. His thoughts on the Titans post-training camp and his thoughts on the Julio drama. We'll get to that coming up next. FanDuel Sportsbook app, my official sportsbook app, my number one sportsbook app. Can't wait to watch Clemson and Georgia tomorrow night. I am making sure to watch that one. I think everybody else is because FanDuel is hooking up new users with enhanced 30-1 odds on the first big game of the college football season. That's right. Pick either Clemson or Georgia to win, and you could turn a $5 bet into a $150 payday. I think I'm going to have to go with Georgia. We'll find out more. I'll make my official pick later, but I think I'm going to have to go with Georgia here. Sign up and make your first deposit to kick off the college football season on America's number one sportsbook and my official sportsbook app. There's no better place to bet college football than the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is great with promotions like this, and they got fast payouts in as little as 24 hours. So make the most out of college football this week with enhanced 30-1 odds on Georgia versus Clemson. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and use the promo code JGM so they know that we sent you. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. New users only. Must wager in designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. Bonus for Tennessee users fulfilled in-site credit within 72 hours. Tennessee site credit expires in 14 days after receipt. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company, delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5 The Game. It's a Fireball Hot Take Friday. College football starts this weekend. This is the off weekend. In years past, it's been preseason game 4 on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Final cuts come on Saturday. Labor Day is Monday. Kickoff is Sunday in college football. There's no games this week. Kind of crazy. No games. Then again, the fourth game didn't matter much anyway, other than you could see an extra game of Corey Curtis in his Titans polo on the sidelines. And Corey Curtis joins us now. But again, a great college slate as well. Corey Curtis joins us, presented by Invigorant Health and Mount Juliet. Look and feel your best with IV therapy, medical weight loss, testosterone, health, wellness, and body shaping treatments. InvigorantHealthTN.com for more info. So, Corey Curtis, I want to start with this, which is, how do you feel about the Titans now that the preseason is over? We know for the most part who's on the team. We know the health of the team. We know they're playing Arizona week 1. What do you make of the Titans?
Well, look, I really like their team. I mean, they've got more weapons on offense than we can ever really remember, like high-caliber weapons. And I like, some of the additions on defense. And I'm inspired by the tempo and the confidence that they played with defensively in the preseason. I still need to see it in the regular season, against starters, with their starters, to know that it's all going to happen. But I feel like I've seen the right things, and I feel like the rest of the teams in their division have not necessarily shown them the right things. So as far as the AFC South goes, I feel really good about their position, and we'll just see how it kind of goes from there.
So I read something in The Athletic, which we'll get into later on the show. Mike Sando talked to 5 NFL executives. Now, when he says NFL executives, I don't know if that means that he talked to Bill Belichick and Jason Light and whatever, or if he talked to, some guy who sells tickets but has a nice title. But anyway, he talked to 5 NFL executives, and he had them rank AFC teams. The Titans come in at 7th, but are the most widely contested team, with one executive ranking them the second best team in the AFC and one executive ranking them 10th in the AFC. So it feels like, as far as these unnamed executives are concerned, and really I think the way people feel about them around the country, I think there's a lot of people that maybe question this Titans team. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's rightfully so. I saw where Harry Douglas picked them to go to the Super Bowl, and it was Sam Acho looked at him like he was from Mars. I mean, look, the reality is last year they were historically bad on defense. Historically. And so, they don't have to be historically good to get to the Super Bowl. I think with what they're going to do on offense, I feel like if they can just be average on defense, that gives them a chance. But, they're still the Titans. They're still Nashville. They're probably still thought of as an 8-8, 9-7 team, because that's where they were for years and years and years. And that's the overriding, I think, national sentiment about the team. But, for some people, and I think rightfully so, they're going to believe the defense is better when they see it, because you can't be that bad on defense and get where you need to go.
What do you make of Arthur Blank's comments in The Athletic, Corey? They came out, I think, a couple days ago, in which he talked about Julio and said that Julio's lack of desire to practice, that was an issue for coaches, and Arthur assumed that it was an issue for players as well, but they would never say anything, and then ended it in The Athletic by saying that's not what Coach Smith wants. And I think we all know that if that's not what Coach Smith wants, that's probably not what Coach Vrabel wants either. Downs, 2-minute drills, even a special gadget play designed for him. He took himself out of the game. He didn't go to walkthroughs. He didn't want to go to practice. And I just don't think that's going to fly with Vrabel. But I do feel like Vrabel has to be prepared for that. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, when you were on Sports Extra and we played over-under, what was one of the questions I asked you? Over-under 8 practices. Julio Jones. Yep. Yeah, because, I mean, look, I don't know Julio Jones. You don't know Julio Jones, but what do we know? He misses a lot of practice. I mean, we've seen it for years, whether it's a phantom quad or a real quad. I don't know, but he misses a lot of practice, and he shows up on Sundays. Now, can that be a problem for teammates? I'm sure with some of them it is. I'm sure some guys look him at as Julio Jones, and whatever he wants to do, that's fine. He's Julio. He's a star. This is what stars get to do. I'm sure there are some guys who are cool with that. But there are probably other guys who are out there busting it every day and are hurting and probably would like to see him out there a little bit more. The question is, does it divide your locker room or not? And I don't think there's a lot that divides the Titans locker room, right now. And I think also, you kind of knew what you were getting when you traded for him. Because like I said, we all joked about how few practices he was going to take part in. And, Mike Vrabel is a guy who'd rather have him out there on Sunday.
See, here's what I think you're reading into what I think the fans are misreading this as, which is it's one thing to say, hey, this guy doesn't practice much. Like Shaq didn't practice much later in his career. Steve McNair didn't practice much in his career. Dennis Kelly last year didn't practice much. That's one thing. It's another when you design a gadget play for somebody and they come off the field. They're like, nah, I'm not interested in it. Because I can't see. If Vrabel's got a trick play for Julio and Julio comes off the field and now they have to run it for Nick Westbrook-Akina, I don't think that's going to go over very well with Mike Vrabel.
I would agree with that. If you don't want to be on the field, if you don't want, what do we always hear about? We always heard about for years, guys who love football, guys who are passionate about the game. And then we saw Vic Beasley and Isaiah Wilson, and now it's guys we love watching play. The mantra kind of changed. But yeah, if he goes Scottie Pippen and checks himself out of a game, I think he's got the wrong head coach for that, because the head coach he's got now, not that the other one was, but he's a full-scale competitor. He's an alpha male, and he better have a good reason why he can't do it, because he's got a lot of other guys, including A.J. Brown, who doesn't take any plays off out there, and so that's going to be interesting to see, because I'm not questioning your sources or anything that happened in Atlanta. We have to see what happens here. You can't ignore what other people say, and he has to know what his reputation is, and I guess he has to decide, does he care or not? Does that matter to him? Does he want to turn the page on that and show that he's something different, or does he just want to say, hey, I'll be out there when I'm out there when I'm ready?
The one thing I will say about this, Corey Curtis, News 2 is our guest, is Dan Quinn, and I don't know Dan Quinn, and I didn't cover Dan Quinn, but he kind of comes off as a doofus. And I do wonder if maybe Julio could get away with certain things with Dan Quinn that he knows better than to try on Mike Vrabel.
That could be the case. They were together a long time. And, you build up a lot of equity with somebody, and, he could tell Julio, hey, just be there on Sunday, and we're good. I know what you can do.
But do not check yourself out on a 2-minute drill.
No, you certainly can't do that. But, with a new team, yes, you've got a reputation as a superstar, but, you take yourself out in the first game in a 2-minute drill, and all of a sudden you got 52 other guys looking at you going, what are we doing here?
The Indianapolis Colts, Corey, yesterday had a press conference. Carson Wentz was off the COVID list, and he said that he's still anti-vaccine, but it's fluid, and he might get it, and he doesn't know, and he's had a lot in his mind. And I feel like if you got put on the COVID list this close to the season, you realize how close contact could knock you out for an important Sunday, and you're still not going to do it. It kind of tells me you're probably just not going to do it. Darius Leonard also had a press conference, and he said he's not anti-vaccine or pro-vaccine. He just wants more information, which I think is understandable, though I think that, when the Colts doctor is explaining the information to you, that you would hope would be good enough. But apparently it's Darius Leonard, Carson Wentz, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly. These are the T.Y. Hilton. These are the good players on the Colts that are not vaccinated. I don't know, given what I know about the Colts vaccination status, given what I know about the NFL's rules regarding vaccination status, and the Delta variant and what I know about that, I can't see how the Colts compete this year in the division, given the fact that I kind of think Carson Wentz sucks anyways. This is a whole nother level for them, and I'm not rooting for it because I'm rooting for everybody to get their shots, but I think this is going to be real bad for the Colts. What do you think?
Well, I think they're all going to miss time at some point because, like you said, all you have to be is a close contact, and you're gone for 5 days. That's it. I mean, you're setting yourself up to be gone not just once, multiple times for 5 days. And look, these guys, and I know people are going to have a problem with what I'm going to say, and that's fine. These guys have been injecting stuff, taking stuff for years that they have no idea what it is, but it gets them back on the field, so they do it, right? I mean, do these guys know what's in a Toradol shot? They have any idea? Any idea? But it gets them back on the field, so what do they say? Give me the needle. Let's go. Let's rock on. Let's do this. And for some reason with this, we need more information. The FDA doesn't need more information. The FDA has seen enough. The CDC saw enough to put it into emergency use. The FDA giving it the Pfizer the stamp of approval should tell you that the research has been done and the research is good. What research Carson Wentz is going to do in his little micro lab in his house in the outskirts of Indianapolis, I do not know. I don't know. Like he said, it's a private decision. It's a personal decision, but it's one that hurts the football team. And if that's what he feels good doing for $20+ million a year, then that's him. But as we talk about what Julio Jones says, or does, speaking to the team, I think that speaks to the team as well.
Oh, I said this yesterday. If I was Jim Irsay, I'd be so mad with Chris Ballard and Frank Reich for telling me that, hey, you know what, we can fix this guy. We believe in this guy. And this is the first, test of leadership I see is this. I would be furious.
He is getting a second chance at being a starting quarterback in the National Football League when maybe he didn't deserve it. You think Marcus Mariota would love this chance right now? I mean, he's sitting on the bench in Las Vegas. He played last year and was out of sight, and he's not starting. This guy has been terrible for a year and a half, and he's getting to start. You're giving them this opportunity, and all he's got to do is get 2 shots. And he's like, I don't think I can do that. 2 shots that, by the way, have been approved by the FDA.
Corey Curtis, News 2, with us on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week, Corey?
I've got a few, but I'll play the audience and talk about Derrick Henry. I think he's going to go 3 in a row. I'm not saying 2,000 yards, but I think he's going to make 3 straight rushing championships. And you know why I'm sitting on that?
Why? Oh, I want to know why.
Cliffhanger.
Oh, Cricket Wireless. Or whatever Corey has. Let me down. We got Corey there?
Well, yeah, I'm right.
Oh, we had him.
We had him.
We lost him. Oh, we had you and lost. Now I think we got you. You said.
Right here.
Okay, you said he's going to get the 3 in a row, and here's why, and then you went out. So you left us with that tease.
Oh, okay.
Why?
Yeah, he's good at 3 in a row because he's durable. He doesn't miss games. When you see the other guys that are the top rushers in the league, they've all missed games. Numerous times, numerous years, and he just doesn't miss games. He's been super, super durable. Even when he hurt his calf his rookie year, he missed 1 game. And then a couple of years ago, he had the hamstring, which he played largely through. They sat him out 1 game, and then he was good to go. He's an incredibly fast healer and incredibly durable. Now, that's going to be put to 300 carries for years. I think his durability is what's going to take him to a 3rd straight.
Corey Curtis, that is a hot take on Fireball Hot Take Friday. Have a great holiday weekend, Corey. We will see you on News 2.
All right, thank you. By the way, Salukis just crushed SEMO last night. Our 5'9" quarterback threw for 460 yards.
How many points would you guys beat Bowling Green by?
I don't know. I do know this. We could throw for more than 140 yards.
Oh, a hot take on his way out the door. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always, joining us on the program. So he thinks Derrick Henry's going to make it 3 for 3. What do you think?
I have no reason to believe he wouldn't. I don't know if that would be my Fireball hot take, but I respect it.
I'll take the field. 615-737-1025. We did discuss this. NFL executives. And again, I don't know what the word NFL executive meant. But I think the NFL executives kind of don't love the Titans. What do we make of it? Next, Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there about something very, very important. Go to thegamenashville.com/deals to check out Nashville's best deals. Save cash with the purchase of a $50 gift card for Fat Cat Slims for only $25. A vibrant mid-century American bar and restaurant inspired by custom culture and retro vibes, located at 730 8th Avenue South in the Gulch. It's the spot for live music, diner classics, and the best cocktails you can ask for. The other deals include a half off a $25 gift card for Joyland in East Nashville, and purchase a $30 gift card to Central Barbecue for $15. Get yours now while they last at thegamenashville.com/deals.
Tough couple days here for us. It's always that way as you transition from training camp preseason over into the regular season, making the roster cuts, but still got some work to do as some players that'll come off of the COVID IR. But we're at where we're at and excited to watch these guys compete this fall.
That was John Robinson, 5 NFL executives. He counts as an NFL executive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 NFL executives were pulled together by Mike Sando. So this is Mike Sando's list, but it is not Mike Sando's opinion, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
So 5 NFL executives came together, and he had them rank all the AFC and NFC teams. And so, for example, they rank the Houston Texans as the worst team in the AFC.
I think that is fair.
The New York Jets are the second worst team. The Cincinnati Bengals are the third worst team, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are the fourth worst team. Any surprises there?
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Big on the Bengals this year, though, for no reason in particular.
Guess the first team that they've got in the AFC.
The Chiefs.
Okay, guess the second team.
The Browns?
No, this one's pretty easy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
AFC.
AFC. I don't know.
Who played in the AFC title game last year?
Who did play in the AFC title? The Bucks and who else?
That's the NFC.
Oh, duh.
Carolina.
The Chiefs.
It's a holiday weekend.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Get your head. Come on.
Head's in the game. I don't know. Just tell me.
Buffalo.
Okay. Oh, duh. Duh.
What are you doing?
Sorry.
What is going on over here? Okay. Buffalo is 2. And I saw where the Titans were on this list, and I thought, what the hell? The Titans are 7th. Here's who's ahead of the Titans. Baltimore.
Okay.
Cleveland.
Yes. Don't tell me Pittsburgh.
Nope. Indianapolis.
Oh, my gosh.
Chargers.
Indianapolis doesn't have a quarterback.
Titans. Patriots, by the way, are one spot behind the Titans. I heard Colin Cowherd today, and he was saying, I'd flip Patriots and Titans. I put Titans 8th. Here, the Titans had the average vote for the Titans was 6.2. So they should have been a little bit higher. Indianapolis's average vote was 5.8, but it's done by, I guess, the median, or I don't know exactly. The median vote for the Titans was 7th. So they're ranked 7th. Now, of these 5 executives in the NFL, and again, they could be, executives like, and I'm just throwing a name out there, for someone who works in the business side for the Titans. Mm-hmm. It could be an executive like John Robinson, or it could be an executive like Gil Beverly, who's a business guy, run, the business side of things,
right?
But not a football guy. And I think if you've listened to this show long enough, you know that Floyd thought that there were a lot of people out there who consider themselves NFL executives who weren't, quote unquote football guys. But that's neither here nor there. Here were the votes for the Titans. 7. So there's voter 1, voter 2, voter 3, voter 4, voter 5.
Okay.
Titans 7, 2, 5, 10, 7.
That is a roller coaster.
That is. Indianapolis 6, 7, 6, 5, 5.
See, that, the way that Indianapolis was voted, that personally is how I view the Titans. 5th, 6th, 4th in the AFC.
So the way I view it, and you can make it this however you want it to be, is I view Kansas City and Buffalo at the top.
Yeah.
And then I think that Tennessee.
I would put Cleveland probably 3.
Well, so I just think the Titans, Ravens, Browns are all in a grouping together. And then I think the Colts, Steelers, Chargers, Patriots are a step below that.
Fair.
And that's how I view the AFC.
And then the Broncos, the Dolphins.
Yeah, the suck list. Then, here's what they write. Quote, the Titans were the only team in either conference to get votes as high as 2nd and as low as 10th. Did they upgrade their defense sufficiently? How much will offensive coordinator Arthur Smith's departure affect quarterback Ryan Tannehill in the offense? Quote, one voter said, I discounted them because I don't know about their coaching. I love Vrabel, but without Arthur Smith, that is concerning. If he were there with Tannehill, I'd probably give Tannehill a better mark, but I'm not sold. What does this always go back to? That theory that I think people believe.
People think that Tannehill sucks.
I think people think Tannehill sucks. And this is another example of it. Well, Arthur Smith's not there anymore, so I don't think they're going to be pretty good. Now, I did have a coach tell me, an NFL coach, tell me that they believe that Arthur Smith saved Tannehill's career. That it was Arthur knew exactly what to ask of Tannehill and knew exactly what not to ask of Tannehill, and that saved Tannehill's career, which I would agree with, but I think Todd Downing knows those things too. He was on the staff. Once you found the formula, I think you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
The voter who ranked the Titans second in the AFC liked the defensive upgrades with veterans Jackrabbit Jenkins, Bud Dupree, and John Simon, plus drafted cornerbacks Caleb Farley and Elijah Molden. Now, Simon's not on the team anymore, and these were taken very recently because one voter dropped the Ravens in their grades because of the J.K. Dobbins injury. Mm-hmm. So Simon's not there anymore, but it's hard to not count Simon as on the team.
After what we heard from Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, the coach, I've never heard Vrabel take his pants off for a player who is not on the team.
Verbally.
Yes. And, that's obviously what happened the other day. This executive who voted the Titans highly said, quote, "They have gotten their pass rush better, and Simon should work in their favor after I thought Harold Landry wore down last season playing too many snaps.
True.
Then I think Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best defensive linemen in the league that nobody talks about." Another voter who voted them pretty low, I guess this is the voter who ranked them seventh, said, quote, "Jonnu Smith is a big loss for them, and they lose Arthur Smith. Corey Davis, and you wonder at what point does the wear and tear catch up to the running back. Their two big acquisitions defensively, Bud Dupree and the Virginia Tech kid, have health questions, as does Julio Jones. This probably is the year where you see a little attrition." I'm worried about the health thing too, for sure. I'm worried about the health thing. Here's the thing I would say about this list that has the Titans seventh. I agree with all the concerns.
I do too.
Those
are concerns that we have.
No Arthur Smith, no Jonnu Smith. I mean, they don't have a starting tight end on this roster.
But I do think when they say, losing Corey Davis is a big hit, yeah, but then you pick up Julio Jones.
Yeah, but see, I don't think people love Julio as much as the fans here love Julio.
But would you say that losing Corey Davis is a bigger hit than gaining Julio Jones is a bigger acquisition?
No, but I can't stand Corey Davis. So that...
Okay.
If Julio doesn't produce, I'm going to be the loudest screamer of the group. Because remember, I said I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they're picking if they're going to pick Dylan Radins in the second round, then it doesn't matter, if you trade a second round pick for Corey Davis or for Julio. It's not going to matter. But I think the Titans overshot on Julio. I think they could have held out for longer and probably got something better in return. Just because I don't think anyone was going to... What you were willing to do for Julio, the pick and the pay, nobody else was willing to do.
And that's a red flag.
That is a huge red flag.
We're past that at this point.
We got so many red flags as far as that's concerned. Julio better be a good player. Here's my thing. I don't see how you can think that the Colts are better than the Titans, and I don't see how you can think the Chargers are better than the Titans. I don't see how you can argue that either of those two teams is better than the Titans.
I think a lot of these rankings feel indicative of the 2020 season and not predictive of the 2021 season.
Although the Titans were better than both the Colts and the Chargers in the 2020 season.
How far did the Chargers get in the playoffs?
The Chargers didn't make the playoffs.
Okay, well then there you go.
They fired their coach.
Yeah, there you go.
I think this is all about Tannehill. I think this is all about Tannehill. At the end of the day, because none of these people said, and I would love to know the voter who voted him second. He talked about all the defensive upgrades in the Sando piece. And I think there is something to this line of thinking that is, Tennessee was 11-5 last year, went on the road to the Ravens and beat them in the regular season. They won their division. They embarrassed Indianapolis at Indianapolis. Now, look, they lost to Indianapolis at home. They lost to the Ravens in the playoffs. They lost to the Browns at home. They lost to the Packers on Sunday Night Football. But that defense was awful, and it has nowhere to go but up. So if these guys are all good, then it goes up, and that offense was so good last year and is only going to get better that the Titans could be, competing at the top. I understand that line of thinking, but nobody is looking at the Titans and saying, Tannehill. Not one of those voters that was quoted of the 5 executives in the Mike Sando article, not one of those 5 executives said, I believe in Tannehill.
One said they're not sold on Tannehill. That was the only Tannehill mention we saw.
That was it. But when you don't talk about the quarterback, that means that you don't think that's a big argument point. That's not a big selling point. If the Titans were a hinge profile, it's like they would put the picture of Derrick Henry and his 2 rushing titles and the fact that Julio Jones is going to the Hall of Fame and A.J. Brown, first 2 years of his career, 1,000 yards, and they've got Mike Vrabel, this coach that took him to the AFC Championship game. And then on the first date, you'd realize, oh, Ryan Tannehill's their quarterback. Whereas I think with most of these teams, now Colts, don't even get me started, but with Kansas City, with Buffalo, Baltimore. It's like, look at our quarterback.
LA even too, Chargers.
Chargers.
Yeah.
The Chargers are a hinge profile team. A hinge profile team.
Like it looks nice on the surface?
Like you see that thing and you would hit the one where you got to pay for it. You know these apps, they all make you pay?
Do they?
I don't know. I haven't used them,
Well, yeah, we'll just go with it.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like the Titans are trying to hide, Bumble, Tinder. It's all the same, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the Titans, and I'm going to say the Titans are trying to hide Tannehill because I think the Titans believe in Tannehill. And the Titan players, I think they think that they can go into any game with Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback and win. But I think that when we look at even these executives in the league, they're skeptical about Tannehill. And that's what this all comes down to. What do we make of it? 615-737-1025. Again, 5 NFL executives rank the Titans 7th. 7th. Wow. What do we think? 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company. We'll get to your reaction next here on the show. But first, Caroline wants to talk to us about BetUS.
Yes, I would love to talk to you about BetUS because it is my favorite sports book. Football is back. Finally made a little bit of money on that Vols game last night, so it's time to get in on all of the action of college football, of NFL games this weekend. BetUS has been America's favorite sports book for over 25 years, longer than I have been alive, and so that's exactly why I bet with BetUS, because they have integrity, they have longevity. You need to know that you are going to get paid, and that is exactly what you get with BetUS. They offer everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, baseball, football, basketball, anything you want, they've got it. So call BetUS today. They'll walk you through setting up an account. It is super easy. I've done it. 1-800-79-BET-US. That is 1-800-79-BET-US. Nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. So join now. Mention GAME, GAME. You can get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. Just go to BetUS.com. It's so easy. Nobody beats their up to 200% bonuses. I bet at BetUS. So should you. So go now to BetUS.com. Join today. Put in promo code GAME, GAME. Get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. That is at BetUS.com.
Silly Underdog Picks is back. Get your friends and family and play as a group and sign up to play today. Pick the 3 football underdog teams you think will win each week for your chance to win weekly prizes like a pair of tickets to a sporting event or a concert in Nashville. Go to thegamenashville.com or ESPN The Game Nashville mobile app and sign up and play now. Silly Underdog Picks brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. The Athletic. Gotta say, I was a little surprised. They have the Colts. The Colts ahead of the Titans. You know how I feel about Indianapolis this year as they go forward with all of their players who are not vaccinated. I promised your response, so that's what we're going to do now. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. What do we have?
Ben texts in and says, we've been over 500 for 5 straight years. This is probably the best overall team.
Talking about the Titans.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how that plays into this, though. Like, this is the best overall team. Is it? Like, Ian brought up the point that the 2019 team was better than the 2020 team. We look back at the 2020 team, and they won the division, and the expectations were really high because they had just been to an AFC title game, and they added Clowney, and you all thought that was a great pick, and they had signed Tannehill, and the 2019 team was much better than the 2020 team. And whether that's because they had Jarrell Casey and Logan Ryan, and they had Dean Pease as the defensive coordinator, and they had a little bit, kind of a pass rush, and Jack Conklin was at right tackle instead of right now when it's who the hell knows. But I'm not doing hey, 5 years in a row, John Robinson's had them above 500, so they are destined to be better than the Colts and the Chargers this year. I can't go that far.
I think when it comes down to it for this list, I would look at it like, okay, if we want to argue where the Titans should be, let's match them up with each team that's ranked above them. Kansas City, Tennessee. Who are you putting your money on? Kansas City. Kansas City's 1. Buffalo, Titans. Buffalo. So there, too. And you look at Cleveland Titans. If I'm a betting woman, I'm probably going to put money on Cleveland.
So, see,
Baltimore.
Cleveland, here's my thing. First of all, I think the Titans are better than the Ravens. Like, I think the Titans are better than the Ravens.
Why?
Because I think the Titans have a more dynamic way to beat you. I think the Ravens beat you the same way every time. The same way. They play a close game, the quarterback breaks one or throws it to the tight end, they win. That's what they do.
Or they have to get ahead early and just run.
Yeah.
Or they have to get ahead early. Now, they haven't done that to the Titans. And I want to say they got ahead early in the game in Baltimore last year that the Titans won in overtime.
I think you're right, actually.
But that was the game where A.J. Brown and Corey Davis played like absolute dogs. I mean, they were studs. I remember late in the game, the Titans on a comeback drive, it was like 3rd and 4. And they threw to A.J. like 2 yards short of the sticks. And he took like 3 defenders, got the first down, and then went all the way into the end zone for a touchdown. And, I mean, he looked like Billy Bob at the end of Varsity Blues, like carrying everybody into the end zone. And that was a great game the Titans played. I thought the reason the Titans lost the playoff game to Baltimore was not because Baltimore beat them. I thought they screwed up. Like, I thought the Titans really blew it. I mean, they let Lamar break a 50-yard touchdown run off. They moved right down the field for a touchdown to start the game. And then they couldn't do anything after that. They got too frustrated with the Ravens bottling up Derrick Henry, and they couldn't figure a counter to that. I really thought the Titans lost that game more so than the Ravens won it. So, and now I'm sure there are a lot of people in Baltimore who would disagree, but that's how I felt about that game. Cleveland, I have a hard time believing in because they've got to do this 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of teams that make the playoffs one year, and you think, wow. Does anybody remember that Phillip Rivers in Kansas City went in 2018, I believe it was 2018, went in to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs on a Thursday night and almost won that division. And they made the playoffs in 2018, and they won a playoff game against the Ravens in 2018. And then in 2019, they were bad, and then in 2020, they were bad, and they fired the coach. Like, that is... Like, you got to do it 2 years in a row. Even with Tannehill. Last year when everybody was talking about the Titans and whether or not they were a good team, they had just played in the AFC Championship game, but everybody was saying Tannehill's got to do it again. We can't just believe that Tannehill was this guy in Miami and then all of a sudden Tannehill's got to do it again, and then Tannehill did it again. So I think in the AFC, there's 2 teams that have to do it again for me. Buffalo has to do it again for me. But they have to do it at the level they did it last year. And Cleveland's got to do it again for me. And now Cleveland's got players. I mean, they can complain about John Dorsey and his GMing all you wanted to. He got you Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and there is a quarterback there, and they bring Odell Beckham back in there, and they've got tight ends, and they've got offensive linemen, and they've got Myles Garrett on defense. But
who else do they have?
That's another reason why I'm not sold. As everybody thought Clowney was the missing link here, and not to say much about Clowney. So I think Cleveland and Baltimore, I don't think Cleveland and Baltimore are better than the Titans. I think they're on the same level as the Titans, and I think they're, if things go right for the Titans, I think they should be better than those two teams. I don't see how you could put the Chargers or the Colts.
And back to my initial point of if they're going head-to-head, who are you putting your money on? With both the Chargers and the Colts where it stands right now, I'm putting my money on the Titans, which is why I view this list and I'm a little bit confused because I do think that the Titans, especially with everything going on with the Colts, with the injuries and the COVID and whatever have you, I think the Titans are in a way better position to beat the Colts.
Here's what you got from the unnamed executives. Again, there are 5 NFL executives that were quoted off the record in this that ranked the teams. Here's what they said about the Chargers. Quote, "That remains to be seen," a voter said. "Their head coach and 3 coordinators have a combined 3 seasons of coordinating experience. Wade Phillips had more in 1985. So the game management stuff is not a lock." So there's one person that's, do you even know who the coach of the Chargers is?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Ian, do you know who the coach of the Chargers is?
I looked it up the other day. Brandon
Staley.
Okay.
He was the defensive coordinator of the Rams last year. And he was only the coordinator 1 year for the Rams because Wade Phillips was the coordinator for all those years before that. On the Colts, they said, quote, "Indy's floor and ceiling, their disparity is huge because they could be right there with Kansas City if Wentz reverts to that 2017 form, or they could be one of the worst teams in the league if Wentz is terrible," the executive said. Well, then how can you put Indianapolis ahead of the Titans?
If that much is writing on that.
There is a lot more, it's a lot more Titan-centric, in my opinion, where the Titans are a lot more certain. Like you feel a lot more comfortable about what you're going to get from the Titans. I think you feel a lot more comfortable about what you're going to get from the Titans than what you could feel from Indianapolis. Indianapolis can't even contain their own COVID outbreaks because their entire team of good players is not vaccinated. I mean, I'm not rooting. You all know me. You know I root for the Titans. You know I root against the Colts. I'm not rooting for anybody to get jammed up because of COVID. I want everybody to get their vaccinations. I think vaccinations are very important. I think they're very safe. My best friend is a doctor. I think they are incredibly safe. I never questioned it. I got it as soon as I could get it. I've had COVID. Luckily, I don't have the long-term effects from it. You know me. I'm very pro-vaccine. And I'm pro not rooting against people getting hurt. But if you're going to not get your vaccine and it's all your star players, 1, I'm going to assume that there's going to be an issue there. And 2, I am not going to feel bad for you if that's what happens. If you get a COVID, not an outbreak, but if you get on the Thursday of a game and you get close contacted and now Kelly's out, Nelson's out, Leonard's out, Wentz is out, I'm not going to feel bad for you.
And all that takes is one player to test positive because the odds of a lot of the other players in the team being close contacts are pretty high.
I mean, Chris Ballard knows it. He admitted it the other day. He knows this is Irsay has said it. And Irsay's an old kook. And he has said it. They are waiting for this to happen. They know it's going to happen. I think they're just hopeful, gosh, please not the Titans. Please not the Titans. Please not the Titans. And I'm sitting here saying, please the Titans. Please the Titans. Please be the Titans. Please be the Titans. That on a Friday, right around this time, that we get a notification. Breaking news from Adam Schefter. Please be the Titans. 615-737-1025. Caroline's is coming up next. We reintroduce six-pack picks later in the show, so we move Caroline's up, and we'll do that coming up next as we've got college football games to bet here on Caroline's. Join us in partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, LLS, Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will take place on November 5th at Nissan Stadium. Register and learn more at lightthenight.org/TM. Stone and Company Fireball Hot Take Friday. Let me tell all the fine folks, Nashville SC fans, join ESPN 94.9 this Monday, September 6th from 7 to 8 p.m. for NSC Backstage. Featuring Nashville SC players and coaches. Watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and thegamenashville.com. NSC Backstage brought to you by Camarena Tequila, the official tequila of Nashville SC. So six-pack picks will make its return at 5:45 today, which means we're moving up an hour early for Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS. It is my favorite sportsbook, and it's been America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. So sign up at BetUS.com. Mention GAME, G-A-M-E, to get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. First up, this weekend we've got Alabama and Miami. Give me Alabama minus 19.5, minus 110. And I was a little bit nervous about taking the spread here, but Alabama on the money line is like minus 1,000. So not even worth your money. But I felt good about it because 3 offensive linemen turned down the NFL draft to come back to Alabama and play. So they have a ton of veterans on that already stacked O-line, including the highest-ranked offensive tackle in the 2022 NFL draft, Evan Neal. Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle leave, but John Mechie comes in and will fill in that spot seamlessly.
He was awesome last
year. Also, Bama's D-line only lost Christian Barmore last season. So the D-line is bringing back a bunch of veterans as well. Miami does have the veteran quarterback in the situation, De'Aaron King, and they also are returning 4 defensive backs, but I think Bama can recharge and reload way better than any other team in college football, and I feel like they will cover this one. So Alabama minus 19.5.
I'm going to have to go with Alabama minus 19.5 too. I just think that they're so underwhelming compared to what Alabama has. Now, Bryce Young, we'll see at quarterback. And Ohio State makes me a little hesitant because I was ready to pin Ohio State into the playoff yesterday, and now I've got second thoughts after that game against Minnesota. Saban always gets mad that first week, but he usually dominates that game too. This is going to be a close cover. I think they got the number right at 19.5, but I'm going to lay the points. I'm going to take Alabama minus 19.5.
We've also got Georgia, Clemson. Give me Georgia on the money line plus 130. Clemson is favored in this game. So Clemson returns almost everyone on defense that ranked 15th in the nation last year, but Georgia's defense was better last year with the 12th ranked defense. I'm going to take an experienced JT Daniels over in first-year quarterback in Clemson's DJ Uiagalelei, and I think that Georgia is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year.
So I'm going to take Georgia plus 3.
Okay.
In this game, I think Georgia is going to win. I talked to a college coach who has both recent SEC and ACC experience that I will share with you at the top of next hour about Georgia-Clemson. I'm going to take Georgia. Your point about Uiagalelei?
Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei?
Yes.
Your point about him? I'm not sold. This guy, he started the Notre Dame game last year,
which
and they lost. And I think he's got a cannon, but I think he's more Kelly Bryant than he is Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence. So I am going to take Georgia. This is a big one for Kirby, and they're going to have a lot of Georgia fans there, but it is essentially a Clemson home game playing in Charlotte. That's the one thing I would say. It is going to be a Clemson home game being played in Charlotte.
Yeah.
I am going to take the Bulldogs plus 3.
It is a better value to take Georgia on the money line. Just saying. But we also have some baseball this weekend as well. Dodgers, Giants. Now give me the Dodgers on the money line. They're throwing David Price out on the mound. So there was a lot of Cy Young discussion surrounding David Price. That's not really in the conversation anymore.
2010?
Throughout the good bit of the season. But he has not given up more than 3 earned runs in any appearance this year, and only 3 times in his past 8 starts has he allowed more than 2 earned runs. On the other side, Giants are throwing out Anthony DeSclafani on the mound. He's got a 6.04 ERA. In 5 starts against the Dodgers this season, he's allowed 22 earned runs in 21 innings, good for a 9.43 ERA. So I think that the Dodgers have a better pitching advantage this weekend.
I have never been a big David Price fan. I really haven't. And DeSclafani, he's hit or miss. He was okay in Cincinnati. He's pitched pretty well this year. The Giants, kind of a team I'm not sure I totally understand, but they keep winning a bunch of games. I'm going to take the Giants just to be a little different here. I have seen both teams play recently because they both played the Braves, and I think that the Dodgers are much better than the Giants. But I'll take the Giants tonight. Give me DeSclafani. I'm not a huge David Price believer. LSU, Caroline's alma mater, the Tigers go on the road to UCLA on Fox. Colin Cowherd said today that if LSU loses this game, that's it for Ed O. That if they lose this game, that at the end of the year, that'll be it for Ed O. I'm not making that proclamation.
I think that's
But I'm also not saying it. So, UCLA is a 2.5-point dog at home in the Rose Bowl. They beat Hawaii week 1. Give me the Bruins, as I think they will honor UCLA Hall of Famer Floyd Reese with a victory over LSU on Saturday night. Give me Chip Kelly. Give me UCLA.
With all respect to General Manager Floyd Reese, give me my Tigs. I'm going to take the Tigers on the money line. I think that everyone is looking at what LSU did in 2020 and assuming that that's going to be the same team that they put out on the field this year, and I do not think that that is the case.
You think it's going to be like the 2019 team?
No. I think no. I'm not that much of a homer. I think this is going to be like a 2017-2018 season where they go, maybe 8-4, 9-3, maybe with a bowl game win. But I think they're going to be pretty okay. But I think this team is going to be good enough to beat UCLA.
There you go. Those are Carolines.
And Carolines is brought to you by BetUS. It's my favorite sportsbook, and it has been America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. It's super easy to sign up, so you can go to BetUS.com, mention GAME, G-A-M-E, to get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit.
So, speaking of that Georgia and Clemson game, the game of the week, apparently ESPN, the FPI is saying this is the game of the season in college football.
Wow.
That this game will have the biggest impact on the college football playoff this year. And I talked to a college coach who has very recent SEC and ACC experience. And I asked him what his thoughts on Georgia and Clemson were. We'll get those thoughts next. Stillman and Company, it's Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game, Fireball Hot Take Friday. ESPN's FPI says that Clemson and Georgia tomorrow night is the game of the season. Of any game that is scheduled to be played, this game, according to them, has the biggest impact on the college football playoff. Are you buying that, yes or no?
Honestly, yeah. Where it stands right now, because there may be some sleeper teams that come up later in the season, and there may be an undefeated versus undefeated matchup, and that's going to decide if they beat Clemson and they win out, that's their ticket to the college football playoff. Now, if Clemson wins and they win out, that's also their ticket to the college football playoff. So I think that even more so for Clemson, because we can kind of assume that they'll be the ACC champions and Georgia will not be the SEC champion. I do believe that this game has the biggest college football playoff implications.
Ian, do you think that this game will have the biggest college football playoff implications of the season?
You would find that kind of hard to believe going into week one, without knowing who's going to, come out. Who knows? Somebody could, meet up week 7 and they're 6-0 and 6-0.
2019 LSU, nobody thought that team was going to represent the SEC and win the title.
And so, I mean, there
that
could be
LSU Alabama game later in the season, I think would have ended up being one with the biggest college football playoff implications.
So, I mean, if there's what if Indiana or somebody goes 6-0 or 7-0 and they play Ohio State at some point and they're both undefeated or something random like that? I see where they could get that, though, just going on the national championship, like what this could mean for that, ramifications. So I could see them doing that, even though I would kind of find it hard to believe that something won't pop up later in the season.
So I'm going to go against it, too. I'm going to take the field. Does anybody remember the name DeAndre Francois?
I do not.
And it was in a season opening game, and it was the game of the season. Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, Florida State. And I want to say Florida State didn't make a bowl game that year. Now, he got hurt in that game, but he was their new quarterback. He was supposed to take over for Jameis Winston and be the next great Florida State quarterback. And he got hurt, and he wasn't, and he transferred, and Florida State was terrible, and Jimbo left, and now he's at A&M, and now we know. I'm not saying this game is that. This game could be the biggest game of the college football season. It's the biggest game of the college football season if, and the if is if Georgia wins and loses to Alabama, then it becomes the biggest game of the season. The only way it becomes the biggest game of the year is if we're sitting there at the end of the season and we've got Clemson and Georgia both vying for the 4th spot, and Georgia beats Clemson. Then it becomes the biggest game because that becomes the trump card that you would say, okay, you got to put Georgia in over Clemson. Other than that, I think there are Big 12 games. If we think that Oklahoma is a team that should make the playoff, Mel Kiper Jr. said today he thinks Oklahoma's going to win the national championship. So if Iowa State knocks off Oklahoma in one of their 2 matchups, that could, in theory, be a bigger game for the playoff and knock the Big 12 out of it than this game could be. Clemson could lose this game, run the table in the ACC, and as a 1-loss team, get into the college football playoff. Georgia could lose a game along the way and then lose another game to Alabama in the title game and be out, even though they won this game. So I'm not ready to go there. And I kept telling somebody yesterday, I go, if the game was on CBS, would this be the biggest game according to the ESPN FBI? Would this be the biggest game of the season?
That's probably fair.
Biggest game. I mean, would it be? I don't know. So I mean, look, I'm excited for this game. I think everybody's excited for this game. I have to go to a bachelor party this weekend. So,
you have to?
Well, I'm going. So I'm going to a bachelor party this weekend. So we were talking about plans or whatever, and it's supposed to go deep sea fishing or something. I don't know.
Fun.
I'm just going wherever everybody else goes. And then I'll get Venmo'd at the end for however much. And so I'm going to this bachelor party this weekend. And I couldn't care less about what the activities are. Anytime I'm in a group setting like that, what's the itinerary, and I go.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is because I worked in sports, and when you work with a team, and the director of operations sends out an itinerary, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll do
That's
this
what
at
we're
9
doing.
o'clock, and then get on the bus, and then go to the game, and then get on the plane, and okay. So I was like, hold on, we're going to be able to watch a Georgia-Clemson game, right? Like, there's no, oh, yeah, we're going to watch Georgia-Clemson. We are for sure. I'm like, okay, because if we weren't going to watch Georgia-Clemson, then I'd have a little bit of an issue here. But what I love about these games in college football, these season openers, are that you have ideas going into the year about what these teams are going to look like. And then all of a sudden, there's one or two games, and you're like, we all thought that team was going to go to the playoff. Case in point, 2 o'clock yesterday, you and I said, go ahead and Sharpie Ohio State into the college football playoff. At 8:30 last night, I was like,
never mind.
That's Ohio State? Wasn't totally feeling it. I talked to a college coach who has both recent ACC and SEC experience and knows both programs well. And I said, Georgia going to beat Clemson? ? And the coach said back, probably. They have a more experienced quarterback. They've accumulated a lot of talent at Georgia, poised for a big year. Should be a great game. When I think of Clemson, and I think about this matchup, coaching, Clemson or Georgia, I'll go Georgia because I think Kirby's a better coach than Dabo. Quarterback, I'll go Georgia.
I would too.
JT Daniels over
DJ Uiagalelei.
Him from the Dr. Pepper commercial.
Yes.
Offensive and defensive lines, I would go Georgia. And I think this goes back to the fact of Clemson's lost a lot of bodies to the NFL over the last couple of years, especially on the defensive line. Let's not forget, the Clemson team last year, Travis Etienne,
gone.
Trevor Lawrence,
gone.
They got smacked in the first round of the playoff last year. They got embarrassed by Ohio State. Last year, they got embarrassed by Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's right. Alabama played Notre Dame, right? Yeah.
Alabama played Notre Dame, and then Alabama, Ohio State in the national
I was getting
championship.
thrown off because Clemson beat Notre Dame, and I'm like, wait a minute, they beat Notre Dame, but they played in the ACC championship game because Notre Dame was in the ACC.
Yeah, Notre Dame beat them in the regular season. Clemson
then
won.
Clemson embarrassed them in the
yeah.
Right. Okay, I was like, that was the playoff game, and then I was like, no, wait a minute, no, they got smacked by Ohio
yeah.
State. So Clemson got smacked last year when they played a good opponent. And I have always been, with all due respect to Clark Lee, I have always been skeptical of Notre Dame. Notre Dame got put in the playoff 3 years ago, and they didn't belong, and they got embarrassed. Notre Dame got put in the playoff last year, and I'm not going to say they didn't belong. They probably were the fourth best team, but they had no business being on the field with Alabama. They had no business being on the field with Clemson the week before. Like, they just weren't. They weren't there. But Georgia is good enough. Maybe not to beat Alabama, but Georgia is good enough to compete in the SEC. And so when I see, a Clemson team get smacked and then lose what they lost, and I already think Georgia has the better coach and the more experienced quarterback, that to me makes me think Georgia should win this game. And then the other side of it is this, and I don't know how much of a factor I place on it. This is going to be a Clemson home game in Charlotte. Now, there will be some Georgia fans. Georgia travels well, and Charlotte is not far by any means from Atlanta, especially when you got one major airport city to another major airport city, and they're close. It's not a ridiculous flight from Atlanta to Charlotte. It's about 45 minutes. But I still think it's going to be a Clemson home game.
I think I disagree.
Why?
Because I think that like you said, it's like a 45-minute flight. And I do think that there are enough UGA alum or UGA fans that live close enough to Charlotte, if not in Charlotte. And Georgia fans travel very well.
Georgia travels well, but we're talking about a game that is literally in Clemson's backyard and is in the city of the ACC.
Yes.
If these two teams played, Clemson's not far from Atlanta. If these two teams played in Atlanta, we'd say it's a Georgia home game.
I think it's pretty 50-50.
Oh, I don't. I
do.
don't.
I mean, Clemson, for example, and granted this is the national championship, but I mean, there were a good bit of Clemson fans in New Orleans for the national championship. And Clemson's pretty far from New Orleans. South Carolina's pretty far from New Orleans. So, I mean, yes, I do think that I think it's going to be 50-50.
I think this is going to be a huge Clemson. I think it's going to be 75-25. And I'm not knocking Georgia fans for their ability to travel, and they do travel, and they probably didn't get to travel much last year. It's not that far. And it's not expensive to get from Atlanta.
No.
But Charlotte is Clemson's backyard. I would say this. If the game was played in Atlanta, what would you say the fan percentage would be? Because Clemson and the South Carolina, North Carolina area is not far away from Atlanta.
No, I would probably say 60-40 Georgia.
Okay.
And I probably say the same thing about the game in Charlotte, probably 60-40 Clemson.
Okay, so all right. So I would just say flip whatever you have there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 75-25. You say 60-40.
Yeah.
I still think this is going to be a more Clemson crowd, and I don't know how much of a factor that's going to play. What I will say is that I don't think a home field advantage matters more in any sport than college football and basketball. I think it has the biggest impact. My theory is, as the skill of the players is lower, the more of an impact home field has. You look at high school sports, you take a team from Nashville, send them out to Knoxville, Chattanooga, send them out to, Christian Brothers or somebody out there in the west part of town, and they'll lose every time. They may be a better team. And they can play later in the state championship, and that team from Nashville will win. But when they had to go there, they'll lose. Home field advantage, though, as the lesser skilled you are, the more home field advantage matters. I'm convinced of it. College basketball, I think there is a huge discrepancy in home field advantage and home court advantage. I don't think there's any difference in the NBA. I don't think you're getting in Kobe Bryant's head. Mm-hmm. Those guys are so locked in. So I think about it like that. But I can't go against Georgia when I see the experience they have at quarterback, when I think they've got a better coach than Dabo, though I do like the coordinators at Georgia, and they pay them or at Clemson, and they pay them handsomely.
Yes, they do.
I think Georgia, I don't think they're going to win big. I don't think this is going to be the game like Deshaun Watson's first career game when Zach Stout was starting for Clemson, and then Deshaun would come in and spell him, and Todd Gurley ran wild, and they just annihilated Clemson. I don't think it's going to be like that. But I think Georgia probably wins this game by about 10 points.
I think so too, and I think it will be a back and forth ball game. I think that there may be a time or two where Clemson leads this game. They may go into the half winning. But I do think at the end of the game, with the experience, like you mentioned, and the more tenured team in Georgia, I do think that they pull out the win. 10, I'm not quite sure. I think it'll be a close one. But I do think Georgia wins.
615-737-1025. Let's get your thoughts in on the big game. Again, ESPN is saying it's the biggest game of the college football season. What do you think? 615-737-1025. Plus, we'll go over the other SEC games this week. We'll get to that coming up next. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They were at my house today. And I was so glad that they did such a great job. They always do a great job. But they did such a great job once again. I mean, they never fail. And the technician explained everything on the front end. He took care of it. Even concerns he had about, I'm not sure if this will be able to work here. Let's try to. Perfect. They took great care of my water line. They took great care of everything that was installed. I was so thankful to have my friends at Hiller here at the home. And not only that, but they're good people too. Every time someone from Hiller has come out, they've gotten the job done, and they've done it with a smile on their face, with great attitudes, just great guys. I love Hiller. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. There's no better time to upgrade your essential home systems than this month with my friends at Hiller. Hiller is offering you credits for your old home systems. Trade in your old HVAC units and earn up to $1,500 in credits towards a new system. Upgrade from a standard water heater to a tankless water heater and earn up to $500 with your trade-in. Trade up to a new electrical panel and earn up to $500 in credit for your old one. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be Here, the service is free guarantee, and I know that because I use Hiller. Proud sponsors, my friends at Hiller, proud sponsors of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Well, as far as Georgia's concerned, you're right about that because their schedule is about as easy an SEC schedule as you could possibly get, partly because Florida is in a real rebuilding mode, and we'll see how good they are. Other than that, Kentucky at home is probably the toughest game that they'll have, maybe at Auburn. But this is not the typical meat grinder SEC schedule that we think of when we think of how tough this league is. So you're right about that with Clemson. But as you look at this game, there's a couple of things that really stand out to me. One is that I think there's people think that the Clemson defense is awful because last time we saw them was in the playoffs against Ohio State when they were giving up 49 points in a blowout against the Buckeyes. And really the year before, they got blown out in the playoffs too, the last time we saw them. So against the big teams on the big stage, their defense has failed miserably. But this defense has a chance to be maybe the best that Dabo Swinney has ever had.
There you go. That was Trevor Maddich saying that Clemson's defense might be the best that they have ever had. By the way, people are texting me, like my friends that are listening, talking about how, oh yeah, Georgia fan, like one friend, Georgia will travel, they will pack Charlotte. Another one said, oh, that's Clemson's backyard. There's going to be so many Clemson fans there, so they don't even know what it's going to look like.
Well, I mean, so how far is Charlotte from Atlanta? Let's just see that.
Like driving distance?
Yeah.
Gosh, I have no freaking idea.
Let's see. Charlotte to Atlanta. Not that all Georgia alum live in Atlanta, but let's just use that. Okay, 4 hours.
It's a 4-hour drive?
Uh-huh.
Okay, the flight from Charlotte to Atlanta, and this is just your average flight, $132.
I'd do
round
it.
trip.
I'd
Round
do it.
trip, nonstop, $132. That's cheaper than the 4 hours of gas.
Maybe.
I mean, think about it. 4 hours of gas is like one tank for sure. Maybe two.
Yeah.
Like 1.5. And then coming back, you're probably going to use the other half a tank while you're in Charlotte. And then you got to fill your tank up again.
Let's say 3 tanks
and
of
so
gas.
3 tanks of gas. Like a tank of gas in my car is like $65.
Oh, mine's like 40. Let's use like 50. So it'd be like $150.
Which is less
So
than
it's all the
flight.
same. Yeah. It's all the same. Clemson to Charlotte is what, 2.5, 3 hours? Driving?
I think it's 2. The difference, though, is like not every Clemson fan lives in Clemson.
Yes, no, I know, but I'm just using that as a baseline.
So I think it's 2 hours.
Okay,
to
2
Charlotte.
hours.
But like I think that there's a lot of Clemson fans in Charlotte.
And I do think that there's a lot of Georgia fans in Charlotte.
No.
Why?
Because that would be like saying I think there's a lot of Georgia fans in Boston.
Why would... No, it is not like saying that.
Yes, it is.
No, Charlotte's a big southern city, as is Nashville, and I think people who go to all sort of southern schools
There's not a lot of Georgia fans in Nashville.
I think there are a good bit of Georgia fans in Nashville, yeah.
I think there's an okay amount. But anytime, I remember one time we talked about Kirby Smart.
There's obviously more in Atlanta, but it's not like Atlanta fans can't, or Georgia fans can't live in Charlotte.
I think there are more, here's what I think. I think there are more Tennessee fans here. I think there's more Alabama fans here. I think there's more Ole Miss fans here.
Fair.
I think there's more Mississippi State fans here.
Than Georgia?
I think I think there's more LSU fans here. I would say it's below. I'd say it's. I think now this may be neighborhood bias, but my old house, there was like an Auburn flag across the street and an Auburn flag next door, and so I was kind of like, I think I'm going to have to put Auburn ahead of Georgia in terms of Nashville fans.
But still, there are graduates of all sorts of SEC and Southern schools who live in Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte.
Graduates doesn't matter. Graduates of a school do not matter because
fans.
Right. Unless you're talking about Vanderbilt. Every other school is all about the fans they have.
Fans.
I do think Georgia travels well. Mm-hmm. That I will give you. But I still think this is going to be a Clemson home game.
And I may be a recent college graduate bias because I have friends who went to all sorts of SEC schools that end up in those big southern cities like Atlanta, Charlotte, and Nashville. But I would agree with you. I think there will be more Clemson fans than Georgia fans, but I don't think it's going to be by much.
Okay, we've got an upset alert, by the way. An upset alert. Virginia Tech up 7-0 in the first quarter on number 10 UNC.
Whoa!
And Virginia Tech has the ball.
Oh, I put a parlay on UNC -5.5 and Georgia on the money line.
How you feeling about that right now?
I feel fine. I'm calm, cool, and collected.
Corey Curtis just texted me and said a lot of Auburn fans here.
In Nashville? Yeah, I believe that.
I will say this, like, and I
believe
don't,
that.
I don't mean to be rude, but I'm not going to let you tell me that there's more of this here than there is
No,
that.
you know the city better than I do. That's fair. But I'm saying that there are fans of all sorts of schools that live in states where their school isn't.
I thought about this when I got into this, because when I came back here in Nashville, like, yeah, I was a fan of Nashville sports, and I grew up listening to Nashville sports talk radio, but you still have to feel out your own market a little bit. And I was like, what are the hot topics here? And the Titans were lousy. They were the worst team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I didn't know exactly what was kind of the thing, like the go-tos. And I talked a lot of Vols then, and that had a lot of traction because I crapped on Butch Jones a lot, and the fans loved at that time Butch Jones. They won't admit it now, but they thought he was like going to beat Nick Saban. I mean, they thought like Butch was the guy, and all those lines that he would spew from his trap, they just thought he hung the moon. And so, and I never felt that way. So I would do that and it would get some traction or whatever, but I was wondering, like, can I just talk all SEC teams all the time? And I learned when Hugh Freeze got fired from Ole Miss for the hooker scandal that I couldn't. I was like, okay, there has to be something like Alabama you can talk, a big game you can talk, NFL draft you can talk, Tennessee you can talk, Vandy if they do something good or bad you can talk. That's it.
Yeah.
Like Mississippi State. Mississippi State has an unbelievable amount of fans in Nashville. I don't know how.
Interesting.
I don't know why anybody would root for Mississippi State. I mean, seriously, there is nothing about that school that interests me. And my friend is the baseball coach, and they just won the national championship. But I have no interest in that school. And yet, when you're driving around, notice how many Mississippi State license plates and bumper stickers you see, and you'll be like, wow.
Interesting.
It will shock you. It will absolutely shock you.
It's not too far. What, 6 hours? 7 hours?
I don't know. I've never been.
Starkville? I've been once, and it was good.
So I had a friend who lived here for a little bit. She, the WAG.
Yes.
She played volleyball at Mississippi State and then transferred to another school, and that's how we became friends. And she was telling me that like Starkville and the Mississippi State volleyball team's terrible, which is why she had to transfer because they were so bad.
About 5 hours.
But the campus was the most beautiful campus of any of the schools she visited.
It is a gorgeous campus. It pleasantly surprised me when I went because I really didn't know what to expect. It is a gorgeous campus. I'm not going to say it's prettier than other campuses that I've seen in the SEC, but it is very nice and it's very clean. And the people at Mississippi State in Starkville are very, very nice.
So let's go over all the SEC games. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. FanDuel Sportsbook, my official sportsbook app. You know I absolutely love the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and they are hooking everybody up thanks to college football season being back. I can't wait to take advantage of this. FanDuel Sportsbook is making Week 1 more exciting because all customers get a risk-free bet for any Week 1 game. That's right. Place any Week 1 bet and get a refund and site credit if you do not win. To prove that I'm not a homer, Ole Miss. I think they cover the 11+ against Louisville. I'd do that. I love FanDuel Sportsbook. They're America's #1 sportsbook app. They're my #1 sportsbook as well. Just open the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started. Use the promo code JGM if you're new to FanDuel. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code JGM, and you'll get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10 unless otherwise indicated. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's a holiday weekend. Hope everybody is doing well. Let me tell all the fine folks out there. Tune into Sounds Baseball. That's right, tonight. Right here, 102.5 The Game as soon as we get off. The Sounds continue their series against Louisville. Pregame with Jeff Him starts at, well, it doesn't start at 5:45, but it does start a little bit after that. And first pitch is at 6 o'clock. Sounds Baseball, presented by 312 Pizza Company and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Week 1 in the SEC is underway, and we've already got a couple of games. Well, we already got the Tennessee game last night in the books, but it's time now to take a look at the entire Week 1 slate. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., Louisiana Monroe at Kentucky. Kentucky's going to win that game, but let's just say this. Can they complete a forward pass? We'll be watching.
We will be watching.
Rice at Arkansas, 1 o'clock on ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus at Razorback Stadium. I'm going to say this about Arkansas. They were much improved year 1 under Stan Pittman last year. Can Arkansas make the step forward in year 2, or was it just everybody else was bad and it was COVID and Sam Pittman got them riled up and they had Felipe Franks, a veteran quarterback? Or is Sam Pittman the real deal? We'll learn this year with Arkansas.
But I would feel very good about picking Arkansas tomorrow.
Well, sure, but I'm more worried about Arkansas.
Full season.
All these crap bum games, I'm more worried about the team.
Yeah.
So it's like Tennessee yesterday, won 38-6. I don't care that they won 38-6. They look so terrible.
Yeah.
And they were so boring. And that told me that it's going to be a long season here for the old Vols. Alabama at Miami, that game in Atlanta at 2:30 on ABC tomorrow. And Ian, if we're running any of these games on 102.5 or 102.5 or 94.9, you have to let me know so I don't get in trouble.
Okay.
But Alabama at Miami tomorrow. We both took Alabama big. I hope Miami can put up a fight. I hope it's interesting because I want college fun. If we can get the same game that we got out of Ohio State and Minnesota last night, I will take that.
That would be a blast.
I just, Manny Diaz, the coach at Miami, has not done anything at the big boy table so far in college football. He got fired at Texas as a defensive coordinator. He was defensive coordinator under Mark Richt at Miami. Let's see if Miami has always been one of those places that they can get back one day because the talent right there in Miami is so great. But I think they'll probably get slaughtered tomorrow.
And I think I feel the same way about Derek King. He's done what he's needed to do against some of these dinky ACC teams, but he hasn't really had that marquee game where he just goes off and they beat a much better opponent.
I'll give Derek King this. When he was at Houston,
he was a baller at Houston.
He stuck his foot up Louisville's rear end.
Yeah.
Forget about that. Louisiana Tech at Mississippi State, year 2 from Mike Leach. I'm not a huge Mike Leach guy.
I think Mike Leach is a one-trick pony. When you figure his trick out, which is the air raid, it's super easy to figure out.
Yeah,
it's super easy to beat that team because they do one thing.
I think Mike Leach is he's never going to be bad enough for you to be bad, but he's never going to be Saban. He's never going to be, in that level. He's never going to compete with Saban. He's not Dan Mullen.
He's great for a soundbite, though.
Central Michigan at Missouri. That game, 3 o'clock on the SEC Network. I don't care about Missouri. Eli Drinkowitz in year 2. Whatever.
He has been recruiting up a storm, though. I'm excited to see what he does at Missouri, but I think it's incredibly difficult to turn that program around.
Arkansas at Auburn, 6 o'clock.
Akron, not Arkansas.
Oh, it's, that's right.
Go Zips.
Akron at Auburn. Brian Harsin makes his debut. Derek Mason, defensive coordinator at Auburn. Bo Nix, their quarterback, still stinks. They should win this game.
Bo Nix throws picks.
I don't know. I mean, when I hear you're an anti-vaxxer, and I'm not here to knock people that aren't getting the vaccine or anything like that, but when I hear you're an anti-vaxxer as like a leader, then I feel like I can make my mind up on you as a leader. And Brian Harsin has to come out and say that he's not an anti-vaxxer, and he's not saying he didn't get the vaccine, but I think people are assuming that he didn't get the vaccine. And I think they have the lowest vaccination rates in the SEC. And it's hard for me to believe that this guy's going to be able to beat Alabama and turn the tide, literally. If, he can't even get his team to do that or believe in it himself. It's hard for me to do that. And I love Derek Mason. I do. We used to live in the same neighborhood. I love the man. I talked on the air about how they should fire him, and then I realized they shouldn't fire him because I liked him, and I felt like no one at Vanderbilt gave him any support. But I'm not a huge believer in him either. I'm not a huge believer in Bo Nix. I think Auburn's going to have a very disappointing first year under Brian Harsin.
I'm not incredibly high in Auburn. I think Tank Bigsby, him coming back, that's a huge addition to the offense. Really good running back. I think they have a pretty solid O-line this year. But Auburn is typically that sneaky threat in the West, and that is absolutely not how I view them this year.
EIU, whoever the hell that is.
Eastern Illinois
at South Carolina. They're playing a GA at quarterback. South Carolina is going to be unbearably awful this year, but everyone will be okay with it because it's Shane Beamer's first year. Georgia Clemson, we've talked about that, 6:30 ABC. FAU at Florida, 6:30 start. That game in Gainesville. Florida is ranked 13th in the country, but they lost Kyle Trask, and I think everybody is expecting, I think Emory Jones is their starter, and I think everybody is expecting a solid step back from Dan Mullen this year compared to last year and the year before that when we thought, could Florida mix themselves up with Georgia? It feels like most people don't feel like Florida's on that same level with Georgia.
I mean, they lost their starting quarterback. They lost two incredible pass catchers. Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney. So I think that this is going to be kind of a gap year for Florida. Usually it's always, you're looking at Georgia and Florida competing for that East spot. I do not think that's what Florida is this year. Obviously, they will win this game, but I don't think that this is going to be any sort of statement year for Florida.
Kent State at number 6, Texas A&M. That game on ESPNU at 7 o'clock. That's a channel I forgot about. They're on ESPNU at 6 o'clock. All I'll say about Texas A&M this year is no consequences for Jimbo since he signed a $1 jillion contract for infinity years.
He's there forever.
We'll see if they can replace Kellen Mond and live up to their preseason number 6 ranking. I bet no.
Look out for Isaiah Spiller, though. They're running back at Texas A&M.
He'll do well against all the bad teams, and they'll play Alabama. He'll get 13 yards.
Yeah.
ETSU at Vanderbilt, 7 o'clock, ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus, so you can't even get that game unless you've got the subscription package. But Clark Lee makes his debut at Vanderbilt. Ian, over under 10,000 fans Saturday for Vanderbilt.
Oh, man. Under.
I think I'm going to take the under.
So and that game is on 93.3 Classic Hits.
There you go, 93.3 Classic Hits. So if you don't have the ESPN Plus or SEC Plus, 93.3 Classic Hits. A couple years ago, Vanderbilt played Georgia week 1, and Derek Mason convinced me to buy like a ticket package. And so it was like a 3-game pack, and you could pick, like you either got the Georgia or the LSU game. And this was their way of like trying to make you buy more games in order to get Georgia or LSU.
Right.
And so I picked the Georgia one, and I said I'd go and support because, Derek was trying, and he was coming on the show trying to get people to buy tickets and working his butt off, and I had to give him credit. We live in the same neighborhood, so I bought the 3-pack, and it was Vanderbilt, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and ETSU. I went to the Georgia game.
Was it fun?
Yeah, I had fun. It was a wild Georgia crowd. Like, it was wild. Then I gave away my Kentucky tickets. Wasn't hard to do. And then I just didn't use the ETSU tickets and didn't ask anybody if they wanted to go either. I just knew the answer would be no.
Cut your losses
so
on
I
that
didn't
one.
want to put it on anybody to say. So we'll see how they do. But again, Clark Lee starting his career at Vanderbilt. I'm a big Clark Lee guy. He was my coach in the celebrity softball game. Big fan. LSU at UCLA, that game on Fox. Colin Cowherd said Edo is out at the end of the year if LSU loses that game.
Colin Cowherd says a lot of things.
I'm just saying. And then Louisville, my squad, Monday night, ESPN against Ole Miss. I think the line is 11. It might have gone up to 11.5. Louisville's defense apparently was not terrible last year, but in my mind, I thought it was terrible. I think Lane Train's going to just light them up.
Oh, yeah, they're going to roll Louisville.
And the coach, Scott Satterfield, he went looking at the South Carolina job last year, trying to get a raise at Louisville, and everybody at Louisville is so tired of being spurned by Bobby Petrino or spurned by Charlie Strong. And, Satterfield was 3-7 last year, and I was like, dude, if you want to go, go. And so I call him Scotty Petrino now. And we'll see if Scott Satterfield can turn that around. So that is this week in the SEC.
And if you would like a little bit more of a detailed breakdown, a new special edition
That's right, I saw this. Tell all the people.
Carolines tomorrow, Southeastern Carolines.
Hold on. That is bullcrap. They
Why?
took the name that I gave to one of our segments every day, and instead of coming up with their own creative name, they took that and made that the name of your new show.
It's a brand. We're expanding the Carolines brand because I consider different things.
So what
but
you're
this
saying?
one was the best one
Because I made up Carolines.
It's my name, first and foremost.
Because I
credit
made up
my
Carolines.
parents
that I am responsible now for your brand?
Would you like to be?
Well, I think I deserve the credit.
Okay, well then here's your credit. There you go.
Tell all the people
I will be live tomorrow and every Saturday morning from 10 to 10:30 at 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. I'll be breaking down betting picks, sleeper picks, all of your betting picks for the SEC slate of the day. And you can tune in on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
For only 30 minutes?
Only 30 minutes.
No commercials?
No commercials. So if you want it to be longer, it could be longer.
You don't think the show should be an hour?
We're going to walk before we run. And then we're going to run later on if we feel fit.
Ian, I think it should be an hour. What do you think?
I think early on 30 minutes is fine.
Oh,
critiquing the name, critiquing the length. Where does it end with you?
Nobody asked me what I thought about this show that I could get my 2 cents on.
Well, it's not your show.
I know, but I'd at least like to be
It's my show.
I'd like to
It
be
is
asked.
Fenton and Company on Saturday from 10
yes.
to 10:30.
Who's your company?
Everyone who would like to listen.
There you go. Six Pack Picks makes its return. Caroline's first year into it. NFL picks this year only on Six Pack Picks. That's next. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way to enjoy the start of college season. And Caroline's new show than with ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Once again, be sure when you're out with your friends, if you're on your lake, if you're at your house, if you're on the boat, if you're on, whatever. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Please ignite the night. Do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Stillman and Company, Caroline is getting her first experience with 6 pack picks this year, since we've got Caroline's and six-pack picks. On Fridays, Caroline's is going to be college football, and six-pack picks is going to be NFL. So we get started with six-pack picks. Jared's six-pack picks brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Ian, start us off as always.
Good to hear that music again.
It is good to hear it.
Well, since there are no real NFL games yet as this weekend, we are going to do we're going to do some over-under win totals for these NFL teams.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. We'll start with our defending Super Bowl champs. The Chiefs are set at 12.5 wins on the season. Over or under?
Are they our defending
Chiefs did
Super
not
Bowl?
win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. You're right. Tampa
The
Bay did
defending
win.
Super Bowl losers.
Yes.
Fair enough. My
Super
bad.
Bowl runner-up.
Did you say 12.5?
For the Chiefs, correct.
Okay, so this is how it works: is whoever does better the week before gets to go first. So I get to pick, and I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. So are we including playoff wins? This is
No,
regular season wins.
regular season wins.
I'm going to take over 12.5 for the Chiefs.
I'm going to take over 12.5 as well. Ian, what's our next team?
Okay, the actual Super Bowl winners, Tampa Bay, 11.5.
I'm going to take over on 11.5. I just feel like the NFC is not very competitive. I mean, like, you can make the argument Dallas is the fourth or fifth best team there, and we think Dallas sucks. So there is, in the NFC, there is Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Seattle, and the Rams. And I don't think they have to play. I think they maybe play the Rams. So that's it. I'm going to take over there.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. And their division is so weak this year.
What's next?
Okay, now we go to the AFC South. Houston, 4.
I might take under. I think I'm going to take under 4 wins for the Texans.
I'll take over. They play a last-place schedule, I believe, or they play a third-place schedule and Jacksonville twice. I think somehow they'll find a way. Give me over.
Jags, 6.5.
Whoa. I'm going to take the under on that one, too.
I'm going to take the under, too. I think Urban Meyer is an unmitigated disaster this year waiting to happen in Jacksonville. I think he screws up what should be a 5-6 win team. I think he screws that up.
God, I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence.
Colts, 9.
Ooh, that's
this
tough.
This is a good one.
That's tough because I think they're like a 9-8 team.
Yeah.
I will take the under because they have to play Tampa Bay this year. I'll take the under on the Colts.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I'm going to take the over. I think they're like a 10-win team this year.
Okay, Ian?
Titans, 9.
Over.
I think
I'm
this
taking the over.
I think this is free money this year, folks. Over on the Titans at 9.5, 9 wins. I think they're going to win 13 this year. Give me the Titans. That's it for us. We're out of here. Everybody have a safe holiday weekend. We'll be back Monday. Sounds Baseball with Jeff.